Hey, I'm here. It has been a weird day. Beep. Yes, it has been a weird day. Kinda went like way low today, and then it kind of got a lot higher, and now it's petering out at a pretty good start to my weekend, my middle of vacation periods weekend. I finally got tested for COVID today, and I am happy to say that as of right now, I am negative. So thank you, people at PAX, for masking up and, following the damn rules. So I'm happy about that. We're doing pretty good. We're doing pretty good there. I don't know how streams are going to go the rest of the week. It turns out that there's going to be a charity stream this weekend with, I think it's already started, with some of the members of Vinesauce in the community to do relief for, the people in Ukraine who are currently stuck in an awful situation that they did not ask for. So I would probably recommend checking them out this weekend. I might not stream Sunday because of it, but I don't anticipate streaming this any further than today until I get back from vacation. And then if I stream Monday and Tuesday, it'll probably be something else. Spoilers, it might be something that's currently on my Switch menu right now that you may or may not be able to see. Not going to say which one, but one or more of them will be showing up. Hopefully. But tonight we're going to continue Chapter 4 of The Great Ace Attorney. I looked at the story mode video someone uploaded of this chapter. The spot that I'm at is like almost just over halfway into the chapter. So I might be able to finish this quickly. It depends, because this took me a stream and a half to get this far. So it may not be done. I may have to stream this one more time to get to the end of Chapter 4. But this is about over halfway into it. And yeah, anyway, so Inspector and Identification Revisited. So we believe right now that these two met someone claiming to be Inspector Gregson at the Red-Headed meeting who had his ID, and we believe it to be this dude with the giant lip because he has the same strangle mark on his neck that little Peppino does in the corner over there. Little 25-year-old Peppino. Oh, great, I gotta do voices. See, the reason I was worried is because I am a little sick, and I think I got PAX Pox, the infamous PAX Pox, which I guess is a rite of passage for anyone going to PAX for the first time. But again, I don't have COVID, so I'm okay. I'm okay. I just had a little cold. I'm gonna try to rest up this weekend, except not really because I have to mow the lawn. God damn it. But I might be coming off of it, because you heard my voice was kind of messed up the other day. And anyway, that's what's going on with me. Oh, I got two things in the mail. I got something yesterday. I mentioned it. I got the, it's like a grip for the Pro Controller that lets you put your Switch in it, so you can actually play your Pro Controller, with like portably. Let me see if I could find it, actually. I forget what the place is called. I could see if I could pull up an image of it. Fixture Gaming, and it was an S1 bundle, which is multiple items. It's a really nice, you can't just pull it. I hate receipts because they don't, put them up properly. Do I not have, the Switch here? No, I don't. Here, hold on. Let me do this so that I could at least get the, Where's the Elgato? Because that way the music does it, because the way the thing is set up right now is the music will, cut out because it's not active. But I can make it active if I just paste reference there, and then put this at, the very ass bottom. There we go. And you could still kind of see it back there, but whatever. But anyway, yeah, that's what I got. I got Fixture Gaming device. It's like the same thing the Stadia has, which, you know, Google Stadia sucks, but it's a holder for the Pro Controller that lets you put the Switch console on it. So if you don't want to play with Joy-Cons, you can actually play with the controller and hold the screen up. It's a little heavy, but it's not terrible. Once you have it balanced properly, it's nice and comfortable. It's weird that they don't show any, like, front images of it, though, on this website. Here's what I got. I got the Fixture bundle. So it comes with this, and it also comes with this box, which is really nice, because it fits this. It fits everything. It has a groove for the Pro Controller in it, which is really cool. I like that. That came in the mail the other day. This was actually being sold at PAX, and I didn't buy it at PAX, but my friend, Kurt, who I helped with the panel with, he told me about it, or he showed me it, and I was like, oh, that's cool. So I went and ordered one, and it was here by Thursday, so that's pretty damn cool. And, what else? Legit forgot about that. You just forgot about the Stadia, yeah. That title, you just saw it. Oh, the Mamma Mia, that's a spicy meatball, yeah. And today, I got my Playdate, which was supposed to come tomorrow, and, it was so tempting to skip streaming tonight just to crack it open. I'm gonna do an unboxing video for my YouTube channel. See if maybe that goes over a little well. I might splice in some stuff. I will do a stream of it because you can stream Playdate games. There's an app that lets you connect the Playdate to the computer via Bluetooth, and then you can actually just stream the games from it. So I could do like a little, like I could have a webcam showing my input while I'm playing them. I don't think I'm going to do the stream now, because the way it works is that once I turn the system on, it's going to start my season, and it takes 12 weeks for the season to finish. So what's going to happen is I'm going to get 2 games when I turn it on, then I'm getting another 2 games next week, then I'm getting another 2 games the week after that, and I guess every Saturday, if I turn it on tonight, it's going to be every Saturday, I'm going to get 2 games for the next 12 weeks. Which is cool. It's a neat little way of handling it, but it also makes it kind of weird to stream then, because I'll be streaming it for like 5 minutes each week. It's like not worth it. It's the same thing I'm doing with the Mario Kart DLC. I'm just gonna wait for more of it to come out. Anyway, it's 8 minutes in and I have not started playing this yet. The man who claimed to be an inspector that day was definitely not this man. He's right, see? You think we would all forget these grand lips, huh? I never leave Fresno Street, alright? I have no interest in any red-headed league. I'm all alone in the world, me. I've got no kinfolk or nothing. Why would I be involved in something like that? Just look at me, eh? Does it look like I carry off a disguise with a face like this? So they're testifying because we believe that this lip boy may have stolen Gregson's identity somehow. It certainly appeared that we have the wrong man. What have I been telling you? There was no need for this pointless testimony. That's right, I'm just a simple peddler, remember? Fresno Street's all I know. How would I have come by a police inspector's identification book, eh? Well, yes, that's hard to explain, but... Brief cross-examination, I think, counsel. Very brief. Ugh. Isn't there anyone in this courtroom who thinks I might be onto something? I stand steadfastly at your side as always, Mr. Naruhodo. Cosmo believes in us. He just doesn't want to admit it. Hold it! So you say, but how can you be quite so certain? There's no need to urge your hands on the desk, monsieur. Surely the reason is obvious, none? Because I have never before seen lips like this. Nevertheless, there's a clear red mark around Mr. Gossip's neck. Yes, a salute for our fallen hero, Gregson. I can't believe he's the victim. Like, I'm still, like, in shock that him, of all people. And it looks very much like that left behind on your... and it looks very much like that left behind in the neck of your colleague by your prized collar. Mon Dieu, with your words, is it like you trying to wring my neck? It does look very much like on my neck, though, eh? No, this is a birthmark, lad. The biggest lips in London and a neck to die for. Aye, they broke the mold when they made me. It was the first time in my life. I feel lucky to have been born with red hair. And I thought being Japanese made you stand out in London. So you maintain that you've never seen this man before? Oui, c'est ça. I swear by the flames of my hair. So fierce pride has outgrown the frustration with your hair now, has it? I definitely feel a lot better. The last couple days I was streaming this, I definitely felt like I was straining myself, and now I feel kind of, chill. My voice is still kind of messed up, but it's cool. Peppino. Hold it! Well, yes, I don't imagine I'll forget those lips in a hurry, either. That's what I am saying. For some reason it makes me want to eat, how did Fabian call it? An eclair? You don't want the virus, it sucks badly. Yeah, I know. You know, I've never seen the hair as black as yours before, either. Likewise, I've never seen hair as red as yours until I came to Britain. See, maybe it is a national trait, eh? Maybe all the people from this man's country have a grand lips. No, lad, I was born right here on Fresno Street, and I've never left. Oof, that is the problem, see? So you definitely didn't go to the park on Lime Street that day, Mr. Gossip. How many times do you want me to say it, eh? I was okay if not for some angry lymph nodes, but your sister wasn't. Oh. Is she alright now, at least? I forgot you had it. I don't think I've had it yet. Like, here's the thing. I may have gotten it at some point. Because there were points where I definitely was out and then didn't feel great afterwards. But I've also... Because I work at home. So most of the time I'm isolated. Which means there's really no need for me to be constantly testing. Because there's no risk to anyone. I'm here by myself most of the time. And I keep my distance from most people. Not, I guess, kinda. But I haven't been as careful as I could be, but I'm also not the most... You get what I mean. Anyway. I never leave Fresno Street. Alright, I'm not interested in the Redhead League. Blah, 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 blah. I hate how this Pro Controller's getting drift now, too, and there's, like, no way for me to open this, unlike the regular Joy-Con. I could try... I can't unscrew the nuts, or the bolts on the bottom of the, controller. I wish I could, because this thing needs a cleaning. This shell needs to be, like, wiped down from the inside. Yes, but she got fairly sick, and honestly, if she hadn't gotten the vaccine, oh, I see. She probably wouldn't have been as lucky. I mean, that's why people are saying to get it. It's not to prevent you from getting it, but to save your life if you do. It's rough. I just wish people would stop being so idiotic about it. I mean, granted, I'm not playing it as safely as I could be playing it. The very fact that I'm going on trips is kind of risking it, but it's also like, man, we could have been in such a better position if people had just behaved during the first year of this shit. Instead, we're going to turn this into like a full 8-year pandemic. Which is usually how long they last, I believe, 7 or 8 years. So you'd heard of the Red-Headed League, had you? You don't get a name like Gossip for nothing, eh? It's my business to know what's going on off in town. I sold that tasty tidbit to a fair few redheads that came past me. Just between us, I even got Sandwich to cough up for it. Well, he does have a very red nose, if that counts. Who knows? But as you can see, my own hair's not got a hint of red in it. And in any case, Fresno Street's my patch. You won't catch me sidling off to some other part of town. No, sir, not likely. You've heard of dick-sucking lips. Well, these are dick-inhaling lips. These are for the heavy-duty dicks.
Excuse me.
Mr. de Rousseau. I hope he's in a... I think he... Hold on. His age is question marks. Well, whatever. Whatever. I will retract that statement if it turns out he's underage. Don't worry. People thought... Because I was talking about... I was actually I mentioned Peppino to someone today. And they were like, is he a child? And I'm like, no, he's 25. He's a full-grown adult. He's just really short and chubby. Oui, can I help you? Did Mr. Gossip's words just now lead you to remember something relevant, perhaps? It was the other day when I was looking for a place near the park. A small house or something. To be the headquarters of your Red-Headed League, yes. I visited an housing agent on Lime Street, and there I saw him. This man was paying money to the agent. What? Mr. Gossip with a housing agent? Oui. He had some kind of contract in his hand, and they were clearly discussing terms. But, no, you're mistaken, chum. I've never left Fresno Street, me, like I said before. You're mistaking me for someone else. Someone with the same face. No, the copper is right. I remembered it too. He was paying the man with the banknotes. With notes? Like I said, that wasn't me. I was curious why this man with the dirty clothes had so much money. So I looked at the name on the papers. And what name was written? Mr. Gossip? No, this man, he lies. He tells you that he has no name. But in fact, his name is Hugh Boone, huh? He's better than Mr. Gossip, I think, see? How did I fucking know? No! I'm a peddler of tidbits of information, like I said, on Fresno Street. And that's that. But he also, if he's Hugh Boone, then he also rented out the house behind him where he peddled. So he had two houses? I don't much like folk talking about my personal life. Indeed. Cammy Luna's playing Chrono Cross the Rad. My copy of that shipped, by the way, from PlayAsia. That's not going to be here for a while, though. I got that, and I got the Legend of Mana remaster cartridge, which I'm not going to play that because I just played Legend of Mana like a year and a half ago. Almost 2 years ago. But on the PS1. But I just wanted it as like a collector's thing. Also, the redone soundtrack in it is really good. And is it not the intention of the court to invade the privacy of witnesses? It is not the intention of the court, excuse me. Very well, I shall respect your wishes, sir. No, we need that name! The aforementioned name shall be redacted from all court records of this trial, assuming no objections. Yeah, no, fuck you, we're objecting. I'm sorry, my lord, but the defense does object. Because the name just mentioned has a very deep significance to this case. Good gracious, do you similarly object, Prosecutor Asogi? As it happens, my lord, that particular name has already been mentioned during today's proceedings. Well, I never. In what capacity? Hugh Boone. The name of the leaseholder of the room. Oh, we thought that was Gregson, too. We thought Gregson was going under an assumed name. Let me put this very simply. The victim's body was discovered in your rented room. I suggest, sir, that you start talking. Well, alright. I suppose that might be the case, He's doing the stanky leg. So your real name is Hugh Boone? Well, just between us, I don't like to blow me own trumpet, but there's no finer peddler of tidbits in town. So I happen to be able to afford a grubby little room in a fallen-down backstreet townhouse. You do? And once every 6 months, I go and pay the rent to the agent on Lime Street. Oh, so he only owns the one place. I remember now. There were 2 vulgar redheads in there last time. Aye, if either of us is vulgar, it's not me. Sing again, Peppino. Peppino. Why didn't you bring this up before? It's like I told you already. I don't like talking about my personal life. I'm a tidbit peddler as far as everyone else is concerned. No fuss. No muss, no fuss. You will update your testimony to include this most surprising revelation, Mr. Boone. If I must. So the leaseholder Scotland Yard has been looking for since the body was discovered has been here under our noses all along. Aye, I rent the room where that fellow was found, it's true. What difference it makes. Hold it! So, you live in that room presumably, do you? No, I don't live there. What do you think? There's no bed, is there? It's just a desk. Wait a minute. Hold the fuck. Hold the phone here. Is that him? He's got the same kind of hair. Daily Vigil? Nah, they don't. He doesn't have a cleft. His chin is cleft. But there's a photo of her in there. Their hair looks similar, though. No, I don't live there. What do you think? There's no bed, is there? Just a desk. Then why would you want to rent it? Well, I don't think I should have to say, really. Then how about the notice board in there? Which was covered from top to bottom in confidential documents only the police should have access to. Ah, no, that board's not mine. The inspector must have brought it along. It's only the other bits and bobs that belong to me. The desk and the chair and that. People don't generally carry enormous notice boards around with them. The real question is, why was Inspector Gregson killed there in your room? Well, obviously, I have not the faintest idea. I mean, it's causing me no end of bother, to be honest. That's a typo. It seems to me that Mr. Gossip, Mr. Boone, would rather as little as known about his room as possible for some reason. Yes, it does come across that way. And more importantly, knowing that the scene of the crime is actually his room completely changes things. In particular, there's one part of his testimony that's really bothering me now. That's how I'm finally going to undo this man. Redo. Hold it! You mean you have no family? Nope, none at all. So I spend my days on Fresno Street peddling tidbits to passers-by. Hoping, just between us, that eventually someone else with lips like mine will come along. I don't think so. You may be right. Anyway, that mark on your neck is too much of a coincidence for us to just ignore. Well, what's a fella to do then, eh? If you don't believe me, we're at an impasse. And there's nothing I could do but flick me lip. Looks like I'm not going to get anywhere here unless I can produce some proof. Ugh. You're basically saying I got dressed up and posed as some fancy inspector, are you? Well, it's beyond me to know. It's beyond me how you think. Oh, whoa. Well, it's beyond me how you think I could do that. Just look at me. Does it look like I could carry off a disguise with a face like this? Hold it! Maybe you could, say, with a mustache or a beard to cover that lip. Aye, perhaps. But if I was going to stick some fake facial hair on to cover this fine specimen, I'd end up looking like his lordship over there, wouldn't I? Pardon? I assure you my lips are entirely unremarkable. And I would ask you not to cast such scrutinizing looks in my direction, counsel. Ah, sorry, my lord. My imagination got the better of me there. Well, Inspector Gregson did wear a mustache, of course. You're right, he did, so perhaps he was hiding something himself. He could barely have hidden a crumb in a mustache of that size. And anyways, the detective we spoke with had no facial hair at all. See, the couple is alright. He was a clean-shaven. Certainly seems beyond the realms of possibility that the witness could have disguised himself as the victim. Aye, it does and it is. That's the extent of their testimony, is it? What's your feeling, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, what Mr. Boone says is undeniable. It would be all but impossible to hide those lips with any form of disguise. Perhaps, yes, but nevertheless, the mark around his neck is equally undeniable. And it's identical to the one that Mr. De Rossi suffered. It's gotta be him. Yes, that's true. But why does this whole disguise idea just keep playing on my mind? Yeah, he's disguised right now. Those lips are not real. I think I figured it out. That's not actually him. Like, that's him. He's wearing a disguise. Those lips are fake. He is actually... I can't...
Hold it!
Okay. He's definitely Daly, because he has the picture of Evie in his room, and he said the room was entirely his, and also, the whole thing was that she said he was missing the night before, and that would make sense, because if he was kidnapped by the redheads over here, he wouldn't have been home that night, and that's why she was worried and went to Herlock to track him down. And he's clearly doing something. There's something up with it. Like, he's clearly doing something regarding that case. I think the board is his, as well as all the information on it. Now, is he the one who killed Gregson? Is up in the air, but I think it's a safe bet to assume that these two are the same people, same person, and that those lips are fake, because that's why they don't recognize them, because he didn't have them on when he got kidnapped.
Hold it!
Oh, okay, there was no new text there. There was just no reaction. What difference it makes. If he's the one who killed him, he was a prison guard, so he'd probably have the revolver on hand, even though he hasn't worked in 10 years.
Objection!
Shit, I thought that framed photograph would be it. Most Ace Attorney games use the 5-hit system, but in Ace Attorney 2 and 3, there's actually a life bar, and certain penalties will actually do more damage to you. There's even a few spots where if you mess up once, you instantly get a game over. Not that it really means much in these games, because you could save anywhere. In this game, it's probably the most punishing, because you just have to sit through the entire guilty sequence without being able to skip it. The room where the fellow was found, what difference that makes. Okay, so it's not this. It's either gonna be the photo of Gregson or the board.
Objection!
Shit. See, the problem is sometimes you know what's wrong and, like, you can't figure out what the right piece of evidence is. Because, like, there's multiple ones that could be relevant.
Objection!
See, I thought all three of those would be what to present there, but none of them were. Give it one more shot, and then I'm gonna reload.
Objection!
Okay, it wasn't the floor plan either. hell is this? Okay. The gun? The hairpiece? I mean, I don't know what specifically we want to point to in this room that belongs to him. Oh, well, it had to... I mean, if it was his room, he had to have been the one that hanged the firecrackers from the candelabrum.
Objection!
But that's still not right, somehow. Am I in the wrong statement? Is that the issue? Oh, you know what? I think I might know what it is. I'm gonna try this one more time, and I'm gonna load again.
Objection!
Okay, no. I don't think that's actually the statement. I think I just needed him to say the other statement. Because his next statement is way more telling, because if he owns everything in the room except the board, then he's got no kinfolk. That's obviously a lie, because there's a photo of Evie in there.
Objection!
There we go. If you have no kinfolk, as you put it, then explain why it is that among the spare furnishings, we found this photograph in the room. Ah. I presume, as you've been renting the room, that this photograph belongs to you, does it not? Oh, well... Mr. Boone, drop the pretense, and tell the court exactly who you really are. I don't know what you mean. I'm a peddler. I keep telling you so. I like this, like, pseudo-corner theme that they use in the second half of this game. It's very interesting that it doesn't show up in the earlier cases, or in the last game. You really don't need to bother with me. Please, just leave it alone. As the man says, leave it alone. Whatever the truth is about this man's life, it has no bearing on this case. Because it's simply not possible that he impersonated Inspector Gregson.
Objection!
How can you be so sure? Just look at the man. No amount of disguise could ever hide those unmissable features.
Objection!
But what if we were to look at this the other way around? What do you mean? Yes, counsel, what do you mean? Well, there's no denying that Mr. Boone's lip is very prominent indeed. But consider the possibility that his prominent lip is itself part of an elaborate disguise. Then hiding that prominent feature, in other words, revealing his true face, I knew it, would make an utterly impenetrable disguise. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Hugh Boone? I can't do screams. I don't want to do screams this late at night. I'm sorry. It sucks because that's the only time I could stream, but, like, I don't want to yell loud enough that I'm, like, waking people up. Good witness, are you still hiding the truth from this court? If that's a disguise, then underneath it, his true identity must be... Yes, that's right. There's really only one person he could really be. My lord, the defense believes it can reveal Mr. Boone's true identity to the court. I knew it. No, please, no. Very well then, counsel. What is the true identity of this peddler who goes simply by the name of Gossip on the street?
Take that!
Your real name is actually Mr. Vigil, isn't it? Mr. Daily Vigil. I don't recall that name, counsel. Who is this Mr. Vigil? It's a name I encountered yesterday, my lord. It has to do with a certain client of Mr. Herlock Sholmes. A young gentlewoman came to the detective agency asking him to locate her missing husband. The woman in this photograph, in fact. This is Mrs. Vigil. What? From what I understand, you haven't returned home since the night before the inspector was found dead. But of course, on that night, you were being held captive by the two Red-Headed League men. And last night, you were put up by the prosecution service in preparation for testifying in this trial. Because we've been led to believe that you, Miss Venus, and Mr. Sandwich were all homeless. Being important witnesses in this case, we needed to know where we could find you, of course. And that explains why you've not only been unable to return home, but also unable to contact your wife, who's been beside herself with worry, waiting for you at the Vigil residence. Now, you just hold on a minute. You don't have the first idea. What am I talking about? Really? I said that wrong. It's a simple enough matter to confirm my suspicions. All we have to do is pull off that disguise. No. Please. Bailiff, bring soap, a sponge, and a washbowl at once. We're gonna make this kinky. Mr. de Rousseau and Mr. de Rossi, you will restrain the witness. Oui, my lord. Si, my lord. No. Stop. Get off, please. Don't! He gets scrubbed. Yeah, he got scrubbed. It's him. How'd you do that with your hair? His hair was like a different style. Well, we are now seeing your true features, I presume. He changed his clothes, too, somehow. Lift your head, sir, so the court can see your face. It would appear that the defense counsel's assertion was entirely correct. This has all been a very elaborate deception. So, witnesses, tell the court, have you seen this man before? I don't believe it, but... See, there is no question. This is the inspector we saw in the park. Extraordinary. On the day of the Red-Headed League enrollment, the man claiming to be Inspector Gregson who appeared before Mr. de Rousseau and Mr. de Rossi in the park was you disguised as the inspector, or rather, was you posing as the inspector in no disguise at all. Mr. Vigil was formerly employed as a chief warder at Barclay Prison. The chief warder? Then your career had promise. Why would you quite possibly become the future governor? Why you would have quite possibly become the future governor of the prison. What on earth have you been doing peddling tittle-tattle on Fresno Street? This is all connected. Well, it's been 10 years since Mr. Vigil worked at the prison. 10 years. I'm really dreadfully sorry about all of this. Yes, it's true. I am Daily Vigil. And you were the chief warder at Barclay Prison 10 years ago? Uh-oh. Kazuma knows exactly what's going on. So where did Mr. Hugh Boone come from? Boone is... the other me. It's a name I invented. Well, evidently there's a great deal under the surface here. I'll explain everything. Wow, we revealed 2 of this guy's names in the span of 30 minutes. I'll tell you just how wretched my life has become. A world record. As you say, it was 10 years ago now that my employment as Barclay's chief warder came to an end. Having left the prison service, I searched for some new occupation by which to earn a wage, but times were hard in London, and I found no suitable engagements at all. In desperation one day, I turned my hand at selling wares on Fresno Street. But your wife appears to know nothing of this. She still maintains that you're the chief warder at Barclay Prison. I was utterly determined that my wife should not know of my failings, which is why I never told her. I opened an account at the bank under the name of Hugh Boone, and I rented the cheapest room I could find on Fresno Street. The scene of the very crime we're investigating. Yes, that's right. A place from which I can emerge every morning at 8 as a squalid peddler, and transform myself back every evening at 5 into a well-dressed man about town before returning home. That quickly became my daily routine. I was puzzled by the lack of furniture in the room, but that explains it. But why on earth didn't you just tell us this in the first place? I have a wife, sir, and 2 sons, and without wishing to sound self-conceited, they regard me with some pride. I couldn't bring myself to disappoint them. So instead you decided to conceal your occupation from them? Yes. I've made such a terrible mess of everything. Still, one thing doesn't add up. No matter how many tidbits of information you could sell to passing gentlemen, even at 6 pence apiece, you couldn't hope to match the salary you must have commanded as chief warder at the prison. Very true. Could have kept your family in comfort despite 10 years of somewhat misbegotten employment. That was all thanks to Inspector Gregson. What? Inspector Gregson? What on earth? It was some years after I'd rented Boone and begun my other life as a street seller. He, the inspector that is, recognized me one day. Do you mean to say the victim was an acquaintance of yours? I knew him from my time working at the prison. When he saw what I'd become, he was deeply troubled for me and my family. And from that day forward, he visited me on Fresno Street with increasing regularity. Then one day, he asked me if I would carry out a secret assignment for him. A secret? What was it? I was to impersonate the inspector. Oh, okay. Alright, straight, okay. Aiding and abetting the escape from this prison convict just prior to his execution. Details of full escape or full cooperation with... The jailbreak plot was conceived prior to the conviction's incarceration. It's believed that the convict engaged in some sort of negotiation with prison staff in order to secure assistance. Full disclosure of information regarding these... So here's the thing, though. This is his notice of dismissal from 10 years ago. Supposedly, he helped someone escape, who I'm assuming is the professor at the time. So, why was he involved in that? What? Impersonate him? We always met in that little room so the inspector could brief me. Visit Orxie's tomorrow and take a statement from the proprietress. There was always something along those lines. Surveillance work, interviewing people. On those occasions, he would lend me his identification so people would believe who I was. My instructions were to make an impression, to let people know that Inspector Gregson had been at work. And for those services, he compensated me financially. A Scotland Yard inspector willingly relinquished his identification into your care with intent to deceive? That, as I'm sure I need not point out, is a very serious criminal offense. But why? What was the point of you impersonating him? I truthfully don't know. All I can say is... that the inspector warned me on numerous occasions. Now remember, Vigil, I need your solemn word. You don't blab about this to anyone, alright? Ever. Even if, well, if I end up a croaker. Oh. In time, he started to bring papers with him to the room as well. It became something of a second office for him. So, in fact, the person who declared himself to be Inspector Gregson at the park on Lime Street was really... Yes, it was me, acting on the inspector's orders. As usual, I removed my Boone disguise, and then went as instructed to the park, armed with the inspector's identification book. It never occurred to me that the bruise on my neck might give me away. There's still a lot we don't know here, though. Well, it would seem this confession completely destroys the defense's case. Explain yourself, Prosecutor Asogi. My learned friend's assertion was as follows. The victim was killed at another location the day before his corpse was discovered, at the hands of these two red-headed League men when they imprisoned the inspector. But no, that can't be. After all, it wasn't the inspector who went to the park that day. It was me. Oh, goodness. Finally, we have clarity. We had nothing to do with the murder of the inspector. And mercy, Monsieur de la Defense, for proving it. What? Ah! Order, order, order! Indeed, it would appear that we have reached a de facto conclusion of sorts. These witnesses had no involvement in the murder of the victim, as proven, somewhat ironically, by the defense. Oh, God, what have I done? I hereby call an end to the cross-examination.
Hold it!
Yes, thank you for saving me, Kazuma. Two-Sword Man. Pardon me, my lord, but with your permission, I would like to pose one further question to the witness. Gregson was a really cool guy. He was an asshole, but he was nice. He was an asshole in a good way. Sorry, one sec. Alright. Kazuma? What question, Counsel? It concerns the events of 10 years ago. I believe you would have been present at the very significant execution that was carried out at the time. 10 years ago? The execution of the professor, Genshin Asogi. I want to know exactly what your involvement was. Oh. Answer me, man. One moment, Counsel. Is this related to the current case? Naturally. It is the prosecution's belief that this case and the events of 10 years ago are inextricably linked. Inextricably linked is like a phrase in and of itself. I've seen those two, like, saying inextricably linked at like that is like a common phrase. Like, I've seen it like it's not, it's absolutely linked, or it's definitely linked. No, it's inextricably linked. Does the defense concur, Counsel? Kazuma, you're not yourself. You're not as calm and collected as usual. He needs a Snickers. He's not himself. He's not him when he's hungry. Poor Kazuma-sama. No wonder he's acting this way. Mr. Vigil's memories of what happened 10 years ago would tell the tale of Genshin Asogi's last moments. His own father. I know. I do understand that, but even so, he needs a king-size one. He needs that new one. He needs the smooth Snickers. The one without the dick vein on it. That's not real, by the way. Someone photoshopped, like, I think it was like a Tucker Carlson, like, Fox News segment, and they put like a picture of a smooth Snickers in it, and wrote the phrase like Snickers removing the dick vein. And then the actual Snickers, the Snickers Twitter account was like, "Don't worry, the vein isn't going anywhere." They didn't say the dick vein, but they said the vein. The vein isn't going anywhere. And I'm just thinking, like, this is what social media has become now. Having candy companies make references to penis veins on their own candy that no one would have pointed out or referenced otherwise, because someone had to make a damn joke. Prosecutor Asogi, do you genuinely believe that this question requires an answer in order to learn the truth behind Inspector Gregson's death? I need you to trust me. Please. Very well. The defense has no objection. I said this before, but man, this remix of his theme is amazing. I love this like harpsichord London prosecutor, like Van Zeek's version of his theme. It's so great to hear it. Very well, and the defense has no objection. Trust the alpaca-kun. I see. In that case, you will answer the question, witness. The truth is, I remember very little of that time. You've forgotten? I'm sorry to say, yes. As I said, I resigned from my role at the prison 10 years ago. But for some peculiar reason, my memory of the events leading up to that moment is extremely hazy. Does that not strike you as strange, Mr. Naruhodo? Sorry? Well, 10 years ago is a long time, but to have forgotten the reason why he left such an important job. Yes, you're right. And not only that, Mr. Vigil's claim contradicts what we already know. The human spirit is a fragile thing. It's broken all too easily. Which is why we have a tendency to wrap it up for protection. Oh, we're psych-locking. Sorry? The human spirit? I'm afraid I don't understand what you mean. We experience pain and suffering that we feel unable to bear. We block it out, obliterate it from our memories, seal it away. But it never truly leaves us. If the seal is broken, the memories resurface. Please tell me he doesn't have the Magatama or some shit on him, and when they do, that fragile spirit may finally be crushed. But I really don't. Kazuma-sama. But if it must be crushed, then so be it. Because the truth will not stay buried. It's coming out, one way or another. Right. Now I understand. It's clear what his intentions are. He means to expose the truth at any cost. Perhaps if I pointed out the contradiction in what Mr. Vigil claimed earlier, it might cause some crucial memories to return to him. But should I? Should I present the evidence or not? I have no idea how this is going to go, but this is a court of law, and I have a duty to pursue the truth. Mr. Vigil, I'd like you to take a look at this. Evidence that clearly contradicts your version of the events.
Take that!
Just a few moments ago, you made the following statement. I resigned from my role at the prison 10 years ago. Well, yes. In other words, you claim to have left the post of Chief Warder of your own volition. Well, yes, of course. Why? Tell me. Do you remember seeing this document before? No, I don't. This is a dismissal notice ordering the immediate termination of a prison staff member's employment. A dismissal notice? And the name on the notice is yours, Mr. Vigil. What? What? It's mine? So you didn't resign from the prison service at all. For some reason, you were dismissed as Chief Warder from Barclay. No, there's been some mistake. I'm sure I tendered my resignation. This dismissal notice is nonsense. Isn't it? If you were forcibly dismissed, there must have been good reason. Clearly, you did something. Mr. Vigil, it's time to break the seal and have you remember. According to the few remaining records, the final execution that you supervised was on the 17th June, 10 years ago. And on that day, something very serious took place at Barclay Prison. The 17th of June... Was that... the professor's execution? Professor... As you were the chief warder at the time, it stands to reason that you would have been present throughout the proceedings. It does sound familiar. And yet, that execution never took place. convict. The convict, ostensibly executed earlier that day, later re-emerged from the grave. The convict came back to life. In the cemetery in the middle of the night, there was a witness. However, the witness claims that a moment after he saw the convict clambering out of his grave, a gunshot rang out from over his shoulder, and the bullet pierced the professor's chest, killing him instantly. Those may have been the professor's actual last moments. Yes. Seeing as you were in charge of overseeing executions at the time, you must know the truth about what really happened. It's in your head, somewhere deep down. Well, Chief Warder Daily Vigil, I know there are memories in your head that can explain what happened on 17th June, 10 years ago. And now it's time for you to drag them up. Mr. Vigil? He's gonna scream, isn't he? Yes, the whole prison. It was complete chaos. The prisoner escaped. He was killed in the cemetery. The shocking news ripped through Barclay like a hurricane. What? What? Order! 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 Do you mean to say, Mr. Vigil, that your memories of the time have returned? My head, it's like some floodgates have been opened. The images, the screams. Oh my goodness. The papers. There were reports, articles about a man who'd seen a ghost. Yes, Order, I would like some chicken nuggies. Yes, Enoch Drebber. But surely those reports were exaggerated. There were traces at the scene. Traces of what? In Lowgate Cemetery, at a plot number 139. Blood. Lots of blood. That's where the man who was buried, of course. Obviously, something terrible had happened there. The depths of conspiracy and depravity from which this tale is emerging are quite staggering. I've reviewed the police reports from that time extensively. A thorough investigation was conducted by Scotland Yard to ascertain how the victim managed to escape in the first place. And the conclusion reached by the investigating team was that a member of the prison staff must have been involved. Are you suggesting that a prison warder abetted this man's bid for freedom? Yes, and I was suspected of doing it. Of using that mass murderer's execution as a way to help him escape. You did what? I remember now. The horror of it all's coming back to me. Is he spinning faster? One evening, a few days after the execution, some detectives came to the prison. I was called to the governor's office at the top of the watchtower. I'm going to faint. I'm sorry, Daly, this is a serious business, but I cannot help you new. As Chief Warder, you were responsible for overseeing the execution of 4, eh? Well, it seems the fellows at Scotland Yard want to have a few wee words with you about it. You'd better pack your things, laddie. You're to attend in person. As soon as he told me that, my mind just went completely blank. And the next thing I knew, The Professor, the most hated killer in our country's history. And I let him escape. I'm finished. My life is over. Oh, God, don't scream, please. Order, order! Peddler, fetch a doctor at once! Court is adjourned for today with immediate effect.
So, with Mr. Vigil's collapse, proceedings came to an abrupt end for the day. Once again overshadowed by the legacy of that notorious killer, appearing like a cursed ghost ship on a foggy ocean. Lord Van Zeeks, Mr. Vigil, Cosima, and Gregson. All of them bound by invisible chains anchored to the same wreckage in the murky depths of the past. But the miraculous light that had been trying to cut through the gloom and shine on those tragic events was playing on the edges of the truth at last.
Yeah, that guy real close to the mic. You could hear him when he say truth at last. Like you could hear the hissing. He was very close to that mic. November, 3:38 p.m. I still can't quite believe what just happened. I know, I inquired with the bailiff after the court session was adjourned, and it seems Mr. Vigil was taken to hospital to recover. Right. 10 years ago now, Mr. Vigil attempted to commit suicide by jumping out of the window of the prison governor's office. But ever since then, he's completely blocked the memory of those events from his mind. Nobody knew his secret, not his family, not even the man himself. But I forced it out into the open. Was it wrong of me to do that? Did I overstep the mark, I wonder? Runo? Oh, Iris. You were miles away. Anyway, I've brewed a fresh pot of soothing tea for you. Oh, thank you. You and Susie have had an exhausting day so far, haven't you? Oh. Thank you, Iris. How thoughtful of you. Do you happen to know where Mr. Sholmes is? When we came out of the courtroom back into the defendant's antechamber, he disappeared. Oh, no, I don't know. He just suddenly sprang to his feet and left. All he said was, I must leave. I wonder if he's pursuing the mystery of Inspector Gregson's death. Well, you know what Hurley's always saying, don't you? There are many mysteries in this world that should perhaps never be solved. For the construction of a solution comes only at the expense of the destruction of something else. What does that mean? He knows very well that when you open someone else's old wounds, you often open your own, too. But he just can't take his own advice and leave well alone. Solving mysteries is too important to him. That's so true. But that's what I like about Hurley, after all. I suppose that's the lot of a great detective in some ways. So then, let's have tea, and then I'll give you a hand. Oh, do you have time, Iris? Yes, I finished this month's manuscript at last, with barely a day to spare before the deadline. Oh, I'm so looking forward to it. A brand new story to read in the adventures of Sherlock Sholmes. You know, I always hide Hurley's violin in the days before I have a deadline. You do? Poor Mr. Sholmes. I'm sure that's very wise, Iris. How sensible of you. Now then, my dear fellows, let's make a plan of action before I continue our investigation. So, how did it go in court this morning? Well, we still don't know the truth about what really happened, but one thing's increasingly clear. Lord Van Zeeks definitely didn't do it. Oh, goody. Yes, that's right. We managed to uncover several new facts as well. Oh, really? And there was another development, too. Kazuma. Yes, it's quite clear now that Kazuma-sama is not himself. The way he's acting, it's almost as if he's possessed. I know. I mean, at the end of the proceedings earlier, he was like a bloodhound the way he was chasing down Mr. Vigil's forgotten past. He's not normally so mercilessly persistent. What's going on in his head, I wonder? I really need to sit down with Kazuma and try to understand what he's going through. If Gregson was really murdered the day before his body was discovered, then Lord Van Zieks has to be innocent, you see. What? The day before? Well, it should be easy enough to work out just by examining the corpse, surely. Yes, you would expect so, but curiously, no time of death was included in the autopsy report. That is curious. There are still unanswered questions about Lord Van Zieks, though, aren't there? Do you mean... I mean, what was he doing there on Fresno Street that day in the first place? Well, according to the man's testimony, he said he was investigating Inspector Gregson, didn't he? I'm giving her that too high-pitched voice. And it turns out the little room was actually the inspector's secret office. Oh, that sounds like it has all the makings of a wonderfully devilish plot. But then why was that notice board in there covered in all those particular papers? Papers about cases with a link to the Reaper. I'm starting to get a bad feeling about all this. Oh dear, that sounds more like something horribly devilish. You must start by looking into Inspector Gregson's movements of late. I never imagined I might be investigating an inspector's movements. Well, according to the entry in his diary, he was carrying out an incognito investigation of the Red-Headed League the day before his death. Oh, you mean he was doing the same as Hurley? Well, Mr. Sholmes was trying to apply, whereas the inspector was supposed to be investigating. I do wish it had been the other way around. Anyway, as it turns out, the inspector who went to investigate the Red-Headed League that day wasn't actually Gregson at all. It was Mr. Vigil, in possession of Gregson's identification. You know what that sounds like to me? Establishing an alibi. Oh my, yes, you're absolutely right, Iris. But why would Gregson need an alibi? An alibi? It would appear that the inspector had something to do that he wished to keep secret. I don't believe it. I always thought he was just a harmless lover of fish and chips. But perhaps they were seasoned with something a little more potent than salt and vinegar. I think perhaps we should try to move away from food analogies. Well, anyway, if Lord Van Zieks felt the need to investigate Gregson... Yes, I agree. We must try to find out what he knows. Vigil, you say? Isn't that the name of the lady who came to visit Hurley yesterday? That's right, to ask Mr. Sholmes if he would help her to find her missing husband. Only Mr. Sholmes completely passed the buck to us. Actually, didn't you say that Mr. Vigil had been taken to the hospital? Do you know which one? Ah, it's St. Sinner's. I'm starting to wonder if all the other hospitals in London have closed down. But that's amazing, Bruno. You found the lady's husband already. Well, I suppose I have, by accident. And 10 years ago, while Mr. Vigil was the chief warder at the prison, he was responsible for overseeing the professor's incarceration. No! So when the convict escaped, he was held responsible and immediately dismissed. Sometimes I really don't want to grow up. There's more. For 10 years after that, while he was ostensibly working as a peddler, he also had another secret job. He was paid by Gregson to be his stand-in, to impersonate the inspector. To impersonate Gregsy? But why? I have absolutely no idea. Oh, Ginny was right. I'm starting to think all adults are up to no good now. Including you, Bruno. I haven't paid anyone to impersonate me. That means he has ties to the professor and to Inspector Gregson, though. So I do think we ought to pay a visit to Mr. Vigil, don't you? Back to St. Sinner's, then. Well, I think it's clear what we need to do, isn't it? Let us investigate, my dear fellows. Oh, Iris, you're even more enthusiastic than usual today. If anyone has anything to hide, my special Wilson shooting iron will set them straight. That water pistol? It's stuffed full of a piping hot, extra special blend of mine. That doesn't sound safe. I'm quite sure it'll be very effective. Better be careful not to hide anything. Well, it feels a little strange that Mr. Sholmes is nowhere to be seen, but still. Let's go and see what we could find out. Yes. I like how they just block those out. Are you alright, Mr. Naruhodo? It's rather unusual to find ourselves here in the middle of investigations. It's just occurred to me that I might have forgotten something when we left this morning. Please don't worry. As long as you continue to investigate thoroughly, you won't go far wrong. Oh, yes, of course. I must get back to work as soon as possible. Okay. Don't we have any business that would require us to visit here just a moment. Prisoner Governor and Great Waterloo Hotel. Alright, let's go see Lord... Let's go see, Why am I yawning so much? Let's go see, Lord Strongfart. No arguments, Prosecutor Asogi. You will continue with the trial exactly as I instructed. Is that clear? Perfectly. It's Kazuma-sama, again. Defying Lord Strongheart by the sound of it. He never did know when to back down. On your way now, Asogi. My lord. Kazuma. He left. Oh, whoa, sorry. Oh my god, what is wrong? I'm not tired. I don't know why I'm yawning. I'm enjoying this. I'm not tired, I'm not bored. He left without saying a word. Yes, what are you doing here? Oh, well, I was just hoping to ask you a few questions if you wouldn't mind. The wanted Van Zeeks' trial concluded today. But Prosecutor Asogi's unwelcome inquiries are going to make it take longer than necessary. Unwelcome inquiries? As a result, I'm losing even more precious time. Currently 2 hours, 55 minutes, and 41 seconds. 42, 43... Then we must resolve everything before 3 hours have passed, Mr. Naruhodo. You were really tired after the last stream? Yeah. I kinda am. I don't know. My sleep schedule's all over the place lately. I'll fall asleep at 3:30, and some nights I'll fall asleep at 5. In a miraculous not even 5 minutes? Anyway, I can't let the man's obvious bad mood put me off. I need information. The Reaper! Does Prosecutor Asogi believe that Lord Van Zeeks is the Reaper? I wouldn't know. It was 10 years ago, in that fateful closed trial, that Lord Van Zeeks made a name for himself among the judiciary. But the next trial he fought, he lost. It meant the ringleader of a criminal organization was acquitted, thanks to all the jurors being under duress. That's awful. The man's freedom was short-lived. He lasted just 3 days. Yes, let me see. He died in a rock slide at his place of work, I believe. Correct. That was the inauguration of the Reaper of the Bailey. And people believed Lord Van Zieks was responsible? He was brought to trial himself, but it was shown to have been an accident. So he must have had a solid alibi then. Nevertheless, the mysterious deaths continued. In total, 16 persons perished in unusual circumstances, ostensibly at the hand of the Reaper. That's a long run of coincidences. Well, the Reaper's true identity may be revealed by this trial. The impact that revelation would have on the British public cannot be understated. Is that why it's a closed trial? Precisely. This country hasn't seen a closed trial for 10 years. So the last one was the Professor's? The trial of Genshin Asogi? Correct. Actually, we heard that originally you were going to prosecute that trial yourself, Lord Strongheart. Van Zieks entreated me to relinquish the prosecution to him, that he might avenge his brother's death. And here we are, 10 years later, with the son of the man Van Zieks had condemned, now looking to avenge his father's death in the same way. They do say that what goes around comes around. However, it would seem that the new young prosecutor is harboring some ulterior motive as well. Kazuma is? I like my organization to run smoothly, in the exact manner that I prescribe. As with the giant clock in here, I won't tolerate a single cog being out of step with the others. Ah, so that's what all those gears are about in here. If the young man refuses to mesh with the other parts of my great machine, I will be forced to take steps. What do you mean? Not something with which you need to concern yourself. In any case, all your questions will be answered tomorrow. Now, I shall have to ask you to excuse me. I feel Strongheart's obviously gonna be, like, evil by the end of this, but I feel there's gonna be more to it, too. As of this moment, I've been delayed from attending my next meeting by precisely 3 hours. Oh my, that is a long time. And I hold you entirely responsible. Even though we miraculously managed to fit everything into not even 5 minutes? I wonder if you might agree to us, talking with Prosecutor Asogi. Discussions between the defense and prosecution outside the courtroom are generally frowned upon. However, I will make an exception for this case. Now go, you could find him in his office. Oh, thank you. Let's go to see him at once, Mr. Naruhodo. Kazuma's my best friend in the world, but I'm really not all sure I know how to talk to him at the moment. A new location has been added. Kazuma-sama, prosecutor. I never imagined it possible. Kazuma's availing himself to the space at the moment. Prosecutor's office. So, this is the office of Prosecutor Asogi now, is it? Kazuma-sama is doing so well for himself. Even though he's always forced to kneel on the floor Japanese style in that dark corner. It's his habit to sit Seiza style whenever he's working. Well, it looks like our journey here was wasted. The prosecutor appears to be out. Perhaps we should discuss things with another prosecutor we know first. Let's see, what have we here? Mr. Naruhodo, it would be very underhand to glean information from Kazuma-sama's office while he's absent. We should wait until he's here before we start nosing around. Oh, of course. Yes. She doesn't take any nonsense when it comes to Kazuma, does she? I mean, she almost killed us when she thought we killed him. Lord Van Zeeks is reading. Look. Yeah, look at him like a zoo animal. He doesn't seem like he wants visitors, does he? But he must have noticed that we're here, surely. What do you Nipponese want? That's no way to greet the lawyer who's trying to get his hardest to prove your innocence, is it? Perhaps not. I apologize. So, what can I do for you, Mr. Naruhodo? Every time he stands there and I'm like looking at the bottom of the screen, like right here, I keep thinking it's like glitching out. Like this looks like a bunch of glitch boxes down here for some reason. Lord Van Zeeks, speaking earnestly. Oh, the fog will lift over London for the first time in months tomorrow. Hey, I'm reading here. This does feel very, very strange. I must say, I was impressed. Oh, well, thank you. Not by you, by your fellow Nipponese, your prosecutor friend. Oh, I see, yes. It's sardonic, don't you think? For a man such as me, so loathing of the Nipponese, to be entirely at the mercy of two of you. I suppose it's retribution for having played the part of the Reaper all these years. Played the part? You once told me that you gladly allowed people to believe you were the Reaper, because it helped reduce the amount of serious crime that took place in London. If keeping quiet and playing the part benefits the cause, a cause I myself am committed to pursuing, then why would I choose to say anything? But the henchman of a criminal killed by the Reaper attacked you only the other day. And that was just the most recent of many attempts on your life, wasn't it? Someone is clearly profiting from your silence about all this. Someone is using you. Believe me, ever since the Reaper first appeared, I've been doing my utmost to expose him. Or rather, expose the organization. It's a whole organization? It's inconceivable that all those accidents were orchestrated by one man. No, the Reaper always appears to have a very accurate information about the accused in each case, which can only mean that somebody at Scotland Yard is involved. Someone at... You can't mean... It's taken me many years, but I finally identified the central figure in this Reaper organization. Oh... Come on, man. It's not... It can't be... Tobias Gregson. Oh, fucking Christ. No. No! Gregson, the Reaper? So, the reason you were investigating Inspector Gregson is because you intended to expose him as the Reaper? As I said, the Reaper of the Bailey is no single person. It's a highly secret organization with close ties to Scotland Yard. But there's no doubt that Gregson was a key member of that organization. I don't believe it. you saying that Gregsy? That he was behind all those awful criminals meeting there? Gregson didn't do the dirty work himself. Oh. He was the tactician. His job was to covertly investigate the Marks and plot their assassinations. In order to do that with arousing suspicion, he regularly needed a firm alibi. Which is where Mr. Vigil came in, posing as the inspector. Vigil knows nothing of the Reaper, but the room he rents on Fresno Street was almost certainly the headquarters of the operation. Gregson would have met the assassin there for briefings. So we don't actually know who carried out the killings, then? Actually, I do have a name. You... what? Well, if you could name the man, you have the true identity of the Reaper already, then. Or, if I could name the woman. Oh. She's a young woman by the name of Asashin. Wait, Giselle? Wait, what? Sheen? Miss Asashin, the true name of a terrifying killer I know only too well. She came to Japan posing as a visiting student and murdered Dr. John H. Wilson. Then, just when it seemed that diplomatic protection would help her escape Japan and conviction, the mysterious woman was herself murdered in a small summer beach hut. By a rando, too. She was murdered by a reporter. And that woman was actually the Reaper of the Bailey? Wow, Sasato, and you're the one who defended her. You're the one who defended the. You're the one who found who killed her. I can't see. I can't speak. I can't talk. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't speak. I can't speak. I can't speak. Where is it? Where is it? Where's my go-to distraction? Thank you, Vinny. Thank you, Vinny, for this gift that I use 8 years later after meeting you. Mr. Naruhodo, this perhaps isn't the place to discuss. No, of course not. We can't mention it here. The fact that she killed Dr. John H. Wilson. Because Iris doesn't know, and it's very likely that the man was her father. Asa Shin. I shall let father know at once. Yes, I agree. Kazuma, isn't it? Kazuma Asogi. You say he's a friend of yours. My best friend. He's the whole reason I got to come to Britain. It was all on his merits. I have nothing but respect for him. Yes, I understand that only the very best students are selected for such opportunities. And I had a fine demonstration of how sharp he is in the proceedings earlier today. He missed nothing. In fact, his flawless performance was very much reminding me of his father. Genshin Asogi, the professor. It's true that the aristocracy at the time was the root of numerous grave societal problems. They were abusing their power, playing with the common man as pawns in politics, in economics, in war. In many ways, Asogi was carving out a canker for society that we British couldn't deal with ourselves. I see. But that's precisely why it makes no sense. Clint Van Zieks was a noble and upstanding man. He wasn't corrupt. Why did that damned Nipponese have to go and take my brother's life? In spite of having once saved mine. He saved your life? How did that happen? It was 10 years ago, on a foggy night. when what was to be the professor's final strike had sent a wave of panic through the capital. So Clint Van Zieks had already been killed at this point, then. Genshin and I were walking down some back streets at a late hour. Of course, at that point, I had no idea of the true nature of the man at my side. All of a sudden... Don't make a peep. You're coming with us. We were surrounded. All of our assailants were armed with pistols, their faces obscured by scarves. Clint was not only from the noble heritage, he was a brilliant prosecutor as well. The scum of London hated the sight of him, and they had no sympathy for his younger brother either. I've been targeted several times before already. Yeah, it's Van Zieks, all right. We got him. I could hear them murmuring amongst themselves. I knew they were after me. But just when I thought my time had come, if I let them kill you, Clint would never forgive me. It was Asogi's voice, just a whisper in my ear. After that, I don't remember exactly what happened. The next thing I knew, there was silence all around. Genshin lay on the cobbled street. Blood was seeping from his left hand. He shielded me. 2 days later, they arrested him. On suspicion of being London's most notorious mass murderer ever. The Professor. So wait, but who let him go at the prison? Who shot him then afterwards in the graveyard? Why did he kill Clint? Why did what's-his-name get held responsible for it? There's so many mysteries that aren't being answered here. They're really building this up, holy shit. How awful for you. All at once, I lost the brother I revered, and the foreign friend I had held in such high regard. I'm so sorry, Lord Van Zieks. That's the end of my miserable tale. I never thought I'd recount it to anyone. Well, thank you for confiding in me. The Professor, the Reaper, and Inspector Gregson. I wonder just how intimately related they all are. I still can't quite believe that Gregson was essentially the Reaper. Who shot Gregson, though? That's another mystery. Giving assassination orders to Giselle Brett. Mr. Naruhodo, let's go and inform my father. I'm sure our government will want to hear about this new information. Oh, that means I get to meet your daddy, Susie. Hooray! Yes, alright. Let's head back to the Great Waterloo Hotel, then. This. I have to grab I'm gonna grab my little cushion. Because, sitting on leather all day isn't the most comfortable thing, it turns out. There we go. Ooh, and it's nice and cool, too. My butt is happy. Yeah, a lot of this sounds odd. There's stuff... Oh, the Waterloo Hotel. Okay, let's go back to the prosecutor's office here. Because Cosmo should be back now, right? Prosecutor's office. There he is, looking at that chessboard. Cosmo. I thought it wouldn't be long before you paid me a visit, Ryunosuke. I was right about what I said, wasn't I? Sorry? That you have all the makings of a great defense lawyer. Booze. I was informed of a brewery in Atlanta by a one Steve Bowling today during the GVG cast, which I'm going to next week. I'm going to Atlanta, so I might have to go there. He mentioned a blueberry ale, which apparently is really good. I might have to go back and watch. I might have to go back and rewatch that episode just to listen to what exactly he said. But I might see if I could go there. I have to tell Celine. So yeah, that's another thing I didn't quite mention. Celine, who's usually, she's not always here, but sometimes she's here. She was here a couple times during Kirby. I'm gonna be staying with her next week when I go to Atlanta, and we're gonna go to the free week in Atlanta together, and then I'm gonna spend a day or two in Atlanta just kind of chilling out and maybe seeing some stuff. So I would definitely, if possible, like to try that blueberry booze. But we'll see how it goes. Well, I always believed in you'd fulfill your dream of advocating Well, I always believed that you'd fulfill your dream of advocating in the British courts. I just never imagined for 1 second that would be as a prosecutor. Seeing you stand in a foreign courtroom, so gallantly realizing your dream, Kazuma-sama, I'm truly happy for you. And I'm truly thankful to you, Judicial Assistant Mikotoba. Ryunosuke, I always thought it would be fun for you and I to shake up the British legal system a little together. This isn't quite how I envisaged it. Sorry, that's not the word I thought he said. This isn't quite how I envisaged it, though. I suppose it's just another twist of fate. I've learnt a lot of things during my time in London. About how Susato's father... Wow! About how Susato's father... Boy! About how Susato-san's father was himself a visiting student here once, along with the Judge Jigoku. And about what happened with your father. Then you'll have no difficulty understanding why I had no choice, why I had to find a way to get to Britain as a visiting student myself. No, I'm not cursing myself over it. I'm just, like, resetting myself by doing that. I want to hear it from you, Kazuma. As you wish, Ryunosuke Naruhodo. Hey, do you want your armband back, by the way? Kazuma, this is your armband. Actually, I think it's yours now. Sorry? You're the defense lawyer. You have a talent for it. I've always known that you would. And now, you've chosen to take that path in life. As your friend, I couldn't be happier for you. Or more proud. Kazuma, so you keep hold of that. Besides, I'm a prosecutor now. That armband would have no meaning for me. Well, if you're sure, thank you, my friend. Can I have your sword back, too? You have 2 of them. You don't need that other sword. Give me the rapier. I was shocked when I found out they were related to the case. The Red-Headed League, I mean. Personally, it wasn't their plan to swindle everyone that surprised me. It was the fact that so many red-headed people gathered from all over London that day. A certain great detective being among them. I expect those 2 are in their cells as we speak, wishing they'd never dreamt up their little plan. Or maybe they're busy plotting their next one. Kazuma, what do you make of this? There's only one place where defense lawyers and prosecutors should discuss evidence. The courtroom. So it seems you're still confused by the situation. That's what I make of it. I get the feeling my friend's always going to have the edge over me, isn't he? The Reaper. At last I get to take my revenge. Kazuma, Lord Van Zeeks isn't responsible for your father's death, and he's not the Reaper. He's the defendant and deserving of a fair trial. You mean like the one my father had? It's a closed trial now, too. The conditions are exactly the same as they were 10 years ago. And even if it ruffles some feathers, I have a plan to show that man for what he really is. Kazuma. What the? It's a scale model of the crime scene. Oh, it's a scale model of the crime scene. Oh yes, I realized that. Does the prosecution office make a model of the scene for every single case? Apparently so. Sometimes it helps to visualize things better and notice things you hadn't spotted before. Actually, the miniature notice board is my work. Be honest, you enjoyed making that. Got a bit of a point there. Yeah, I guess so. Do you know who the man in the portrait is? I mean, it's Clint, obviously. Why would I? What? But you're Lord Van Zeek's apprentice. Yes, apprentice, not friend. And during the time I was suffering from amnesia, I didn't even notice that picture. Oh, really? I mean, it's not the smallest picture. I wouldn't have the first idea what the man decorates his office with. Oh, I actually can't observe that. It's getting on for a year now, since what happened on the SS Burya. We were heading across the oceans from Japan to Great Britain, when a bizarre series of coincidences? Okay, that's not right. When a bizarre series of coincidences led to those tragic events. I thought I'd lost my best friend forever. I must have been unconscious for a long time. When I awoke, I was lying on a bed. It was a narrow little room. There was a posy of flowers by the pillow. It took me a little while to realize that I was in the cabin of a ship. I slipped out of the room and headed up onto the deck. Were you already suffering from amnesia at that point? Yes, I didn't know what had happened or where I was. There was just this voice in my head. You have something to do, something no one else can know about. Go to Great Britain. Your task awaits you there. It was a calling I couldn't ignore. It compelled me relentlessly. Out on deck, I saw that I was on a huge steamship. Out on deck, I saw I was on a huge steamship, and we were docked in a large port. It must have been Hong Kong. Yes, it must have been, presumably just before they were due to carry your body off the ship. I had no idea of the situation, but I did have the feeling that this was in some way my last chance. So I concealed myself among the disembarking passengers and went ashore. Then I disappeared into the crowded streets of that foreign port city, so I could plan my onward journey to Great Britain. Just under a year ago, with all my past memories lost to me, I was left behind in Hong Kong. Everything was foreign to me, the sights, the sounds, the smells. My head reeled. I was truly at a loss. I realized now that I had escaped as a dead man, with nothing but the clothes on my back. No money, of course. Oh, how terrifying for you. Luckily, though, I had 2 feathers in my cap. One being your knowledge of English, I suppose? That's right. And on the back of that, I was able to pick up some work as a deckhand on a cargo ship. Eventually, after calling at countless ports, I finally arrived at Dover. That must have been some 3 months ago now. Your formidable tenacity of purpose showing itself again. I mean, the man had lost his memory and had literally nothing to his name, but he still managed to make his way to London on the opposite side of the world. Of course, I had no idea why I'd moved heaven and earth to get here at that point. So how did you end up becoming Lord Van Zeek's apprentice, then? That can only be called an extraordinary stroke of luck, really. You see, I was stopped at the border because I had no papers. They took me straight to Scotland Yard. And by sheer coincidence, Lord Strongheart was there to attend a meeting. That's when the second feather in my cap came into play. Well, that had to have been your knowledge of the law? Yes, exactly. Lord Strongheart was curious about an Easterner with intimate knowledge of British law. He took me back with him to the Supreme Court and assigned me to the prosecutor's office. And then 9 days ago, you finally got your memory back after the trial involving Drebber. Yes, I did. Ever since I first met you at Yume, you talked about your dream. Mark my words, Ryunosuke, I'll be chosen as a visiting student and make my way to Great Britain someday. Did you know the entire time about what happened to your father here? Here? 16 years ago. Aw. When my father left on that exciting trip to Great Britain, I was just a boy. We took a photograph together the day before his departure. It's my last memory of him. What I remember most about my father is his unswerving sense of justice. 6 years after he left, a gentleman called at our family home. He told me that Genshin, my father, had been taken ill in England and passed away. It was Professor Mikotoba, your father, Susato-san. Oh my. Ever since then, the professor was very good to me. He even helped me fund my university education at Yume. I'll be forever in his debt. But nevertheless, I just couldn't bring myself to believe what he told me. Oh. Then one day a letter arrived at our house from Britain. There was no indication of the sender, so I opened it assuming it was from an old acquaintance of my father. What I read in that letter changed my entire life. What did it say? It said that my father had been a mass murderer, and the writer cursed the Asogi name. Oh no! As a result of that letter, I found out what had been hidden from me all these years. Presumably, the letter was sent from a relative of one of the victims. If whoever it was had been a member of the judiciary, he could have been present at the closed trial. The letter revealed that my father had been sentenced to death, executed for being a killer. I'm so sorry you had to find out that way. I imagine the British government did its very best to silence whoever sent that letter. But someone who knew the truth and couldn't bear the resentment was always going to be a problem. But still, it could have been written by anyone. Why would you believe such a thing? There was a newspaper cutting included with the letter. It was the first I'd ever heard of the professor and his terrible killing spree. Well, what did my father have to say about the letter? I couldn't bring myself to show it to him. What? Why not? Because he deliberately concealed the truth from me by telling me my father was taken by a fatal illness. That couldn't have been easy for him, and he'd done it out of consideration for my feelings. So instead, I showed the letter to Judge Jigoku. To the other visiting student. He faltered for the briefest of moments, but then he just laughed the letter off. But in that moment, I saw it on his face. He was undeniably shocked, shaken momentarily before recovering his poise. A year later, my bereaved mother succumbed to the strain of grief, and she too passed away. That's when I made up my mind that one day, without fail, I would cross the seas to Britain and seek the truth for myself. The truth about my father, Genshin Asogi. And I wouldn't let anyone stand in my way. Oh, Kazuma-sama. What we learned yesterday, what we learned today, what we learned tomorrow, what we learned every day, what we learned every one which way. chest kind of hurts. Sorry. What we learned today in court turned things completely on their head. It was an impressive piece of lawyering, Ryunosuke Naruhodo. Lord Van Zeeks isn't the Reaper, you know. I almost don't want to believe it myself, but it turns out that the inspector... I almost don't want to believe it myself, but it turns out that Inspector Gregson himself, the victim, was... It's clear the inspector was behind the Reaper's activity all along. What? You mean you knew? The real question is, who's been giving orders to the inspector? Yes, Barak Van Zeeks is the real Reaper. And I know that 10 years ago, it was him who decided my father must be a mass murderer and sent him to his grave. No, he was merely seeing that justice was done as the law dictates. He's not to blame. Ultimately, it's people who condemn people. The law is just a tool they use to do it. And when a man condemns another, he must take responsibility for his actions. Of course he must. But I know for certain that my father would never have taken another man's life. Kazuma. On the contrary, my father's life was taken by the Reaper. Alright, I think he's out of things to say. Before I go to the next area, I'm going to take a quick bathroom break. And this time, I won't forget to hit the pause recording button. The story is don't accept strange artifacts from people in foreign countries, especially if they're glowing, because you'll wake up and your hand will be turned into a tentacle. Really cool stuff. Anyway, hey, I'm back from the toilet. I don't know why I came back in the middle of the story, but okay. I gotta do crack open in Arizona here. Are we sure you've asked everything we need to, Mr. Naruhodo? So there might be something else here I have to present. Okay. Nothing there. We already said that. A penis firecracker. Notice board. Crime scene floor plan? Nope. This came up in the trial, didn't it? As something a little dubious, I mean. The fact that no time of death was recorded on Inspector Gregson's autopsy report. Yes, there were some unexpected turns in the courtroom earlier. The suggestion you came up with certainly took everyone by surprise. The idea that the victim died the previous day at some other location is quite something. Well, considering when the pocket watch had stopped and the scorch marks on the candle, it's certainly a distinct possibility. The evidence and the scene both point to it. To be honest, it bothered me too, so I paid a visit to the autopsy room earlier. The coroner responsible wasn't there, but I got a name. It's Dr. Gory. If it wouldn't trouble you, Kazuma-sama, we'd very much like to speak with the coroner, too. Of course, the last thing I want is for anything to be brushed under the carpet. Scotland Yard's autopsy laboratory is behind Lowgate Cemetery. Lowgate Cemetery? By Barclay Prison, you mean? Ah, you know it, do you? The prison where my father was incarcerated and robbed of his life. Kazuma-sama. Well, thank you. We'll pay a visit to the laboratory later today. Ryunosuke, I want to thank you. What for? For this. You safeguarded the soul of the Asogi clan. Well, it is a famous sword that's been in your family for generations. My only slight regret is that I never got the chance to draw it before I returned it to you. Karuma is said to have been forged by a master swordsmith during the Sengoku Warring States period. I come from a long lineage of warriors, many of whom were expert swordsmen. Well then, you're a chip off the old block, I'd say. This blade, Kuruma, is the symbol of the Asogi clan's honor and might. Apparently, one of my father's apprentices even took the blade's name for a surname. Sword name! It was a sword name. Really, Kuruma. It does sound formidable, that's for sure. Oh, shit! Wait, so apparently one of my father's apprentices even took the blade's name for a surname. Hold up a second. Let's see here. Manfred von Karma. The names in other languages, Japanese, Go Kuruma. Awesome. "16 years ago, when my father was a visiting student here in London, he had this sword forever at his side." I knew the name sounded familiar, and I was like, oh, but where have I heard it before? So somehow Kuruma, over many years, due to localization issues, that family, that bloodline became German, and it became von Karma. Which is why it means so much to me that I have it by my side again now, too. And that is all thanks to you. It was an honor. And I got this sword, too. It's pretty cool, but it's not the same. Now, I have preparations to make for tomorrow. Perhaps I said a little too much. Kazuma, you've changed. No, Ryunosuke, I haven't changed at all. It's you who's changed. I can completely understand your resentment of Lord Van Zieks given what happened. But the fact is, those events in this case are, well, unrelated. Is that what you want to say? How could you be so sure? What do you mean? Never mind. That man is the Reaper, and it's for that reason that the inspector was killed. I'm going to prove as much in court tomorrow, by whatever means necessary. I can't let you do that, Kazuma. I know you'll do what you have to as a lawyer, but I'm sure I don't need to tell you that I won't be taking any prisoners in the courtroom. I would expect nothing less. Until tomorrow, then, in the Old Bailey. We got so many places to go here. So we go to the hotel. We might as well get that over with. We'll go down. We'll go down the list now. I thought it yesterday, and I think it again today. This place is so princely. It's a wild guess, but I have a feeling you'll think the same tomorrow, too. My tea has a finer fragrance than whatever they're serving in the tea room here, though, wouldn't you say? Ah, look what we have here. This is an unexpected pleasure. Ah, Father. Oh, is this your daddy, Susie? How lovely. What a charming young lady. I know you are. Ah, really? So you're the author of The Adventures of Sherlock Sholmes, are you? That's me, Iris Wilson, at your service, sir. Susie's been such a wonderful friend to me over the last year, you know? Well, Miss Wilson, I must say I read your work regularly and with much interest. Iris actually lives with Mr. Sholmes, you know, Father. Is that so? Well, perhaps that goes some way to explaining that bright look in your eyes. You wouldn't be smiling so airily if you knew just how bright she is, believe me. Now then, young Naruhodo, it was a pleasure seeing you in action earlier. As an invitee of the symposium, I was allowed to observe from the gallery, after I twisted some arms. And I must say, It was truly an exemplary performance. Oh, well, thank you very much. Although I'm fairly sure you admitted by Kazuma on the end there. No, please don't misunderstand. It was you who impressed me. Really? You didn't miss a step against Asogi. We all know how capable he is. Really, to have matured in such a fine defense lawyer in less than a year is quite extraordinary. It's very kind of you to say so, and really nice to hear. What I saw in court today confirmed what I've been hoping for. The favor I mentioned yesterday, Naruhodo, I trust you haven't forgotten. Oh, no, you did mention something, didn't you? But first, we have something to report, Father. Of course. Shall we take tea while we discuss matters further? I wonder where Judge Jigoku has got to. Professor Mikotoba, I wonder, could I show... Oh wait, it's the same thing as earlier. Father, do you know about the so-called Reaper of the Bailey? I've heard rumors. Some members of the judiciary explained it all to me yesterday. Of course, when I was a visiting student here in London, the Reaper was yet to emerge. Right, he didn't appear until after the case when the visiting students had already returned home. Lord Van Zeeks was who was in the dock today. That was Barrack, the younger brother of Clint Van Zeeks, I believe. That's right, and he's known throughout London as the Reaper, as you've heard. But the truth is, it wasn't him behind all those mysterious deaths. It was somebody else. I see. So what you're saying is, there's been a professional killer at work here? Exactly. Someone by the name of Asashin, in fact. I beg your pardon? Did you say Asashin? You mean that Giselle Brett woman who was responsible for killing my great friend? Oh no, a friend of yours was killed? Professor Mikotoba, I think perhaps we shouldn't discuss this right now. Because the friend the professor is talking about is Dr. John H. Wilson. And that's not something we want Iris to find out about. Not like this, anyway. Okay, now we can talk about it. I've just remembered something. Biscuits. This hotel has the most delicious-looking biscuits. That was rather out of the blue. She's doing this deliberately. I think I'll go and see if I could purchase some. I wonder, would you like to come too, Iris? Oh, yes. You just try to leave me behind. So that young girl is called Iris Wilson, is she? Yes, that's right. And she's the author of all those adventure stories starring the great Detective Sholmes. But the name of the credited author isn't Iris, is it? It's Dr. John H. Wilson. Cookies are good. Yeah, they are. Scones are good. My mom has made those a few times lately, and they are very delicious. Very filling. You bite into one of those, and it fills you up immediately. She made blueberry and chocolate chip scones, as well as plain ones. Yes, I know. That's the name of her father, you see. Her father. Dr. John H. Wilson. I was deeply indebted to the man for all the kindness he showed me during my time in London. That's why I was keen to reciprocate and invite him to the Imperial Yume University 4 years ago. Blueberry scones, yeah. But he was murdered last year by Giselle Brett. Why? Why would the hand of the Reaper stretch all the way to Japan? Iris knows nothing about that case, but it seems very likely that the victim, Dr. Wilson, was her father. Well, I can't say that we ever spoke about his family, so I don't know if he had a daughter or not. But I think I could say with some certainty that he was never the great detective's partner. So it could have been another Dr. Wilson, you think? Well, John and Wilson are both common names, after all. Still, it's probably best not to mention this to the young lady until we can be sure. That's what we thought, yes. We're back with cinnamon biscuits. Oh, they smell delicious, Iris. I think cinnamon will go over very well with the tea they serve here. Don't you, Susie? Yes, I'm sure you're right, Iris. Judge Jigoku. I haven't seen Judge Jigoku for a while, have you? No, now that you mention it, I haven't seen him since this morning either. I suppose since the symposium's opening was postponed, he'll have gone to explore the great exhibition. That reminds me of something you mentioned yesterday. About Judge Jigoku having once been in the dock himself? Ah, yes, it was all tied up with that accursed trial. The closed trial of Kazuma's father. Seishiro was trying to mitigate Genshin's guilt, so he took the stand to testify. But he got a little carried away and, actually managed to break the witness stand. Oh my. He also said some contemptuous words about the British Empire, for which he was charged. Oh dear, although it's worryingly easy to imagine him doing that. Well, it was all right in the end. He was acquitted and we returned home to Japan together. Thank goodness. Ah yes, talking of Seishiro, I have a copy of the photograph we all took together here yesterday. Please. Oh, what a lovely picture. It certainly seems to shout, "We've arrived in Britain." Photograph taken in the foyer of the Great Waterloo Hotel on the morning of Professor Mikotoba and Judge Jigoku's arrival in London for the symposium. None of us had any idea what was coming when we took that, did we? No, that's so true. The favor. So you mentioned a favor that you'd like to ask me. Well, this fateful trial that you're fighting, one way or another, it will be over before long. And when it is, I'd like you to accompany me back to Japan. You want me to do... What? Father, what's the meaning of this? Now, Susato, you should understand. You've seen how our courts work firsthand. Japan's judicial system is in its infancy, especially when it comes to defense. Oh, you mean... The Supreme Court of Judicature is in desperate need of a good defense lawyer. As soon as possible. Really quite urgently, in fact. But I've not even been in London a year yet. I've read all of Sasato's reports. I'm well aware of your extraordinary talents. And having seen you in action with my own eyes earlier today, there's no question. You, Naruhodo, are precisely the man our country needs. So, you'd be leaving then, Runo? But then, what am I supposed to do, Father? You came here to serve as Asogi's judicial assistant. Oh yes, she's supposed to be Kazuma's assistant. Our government is still in the process of deciding how best to deal with his situation, though. You've always chosen your own path, Susato, and I trust your judgment. In this matter also. Father. Please, the pair of you, don't look so downcast. It's merely a suggestion, you understand? A hope, if I'm honest, but I won't force you. All I ask is that you consider it, and come to a decision by the time this trial concludes. Yes, alright. You won't leave, will you, Runo? Thought hadn't even crossed my mind. Up until now, I've just been trying to do what I believe to be Kazuma's will. But it turns out that he's still alive, so... where does that leave me? Well, if you'll excuse me now, I need to telegram government ministers and the Japanese police with this information about Asa Shin. course, Father. Thank you. Look forward to next month's installment, Miss Wilson. Oh, good. And please, do come to Baker Street sometime, won't you? We'd love to entertain you. I would be delighted. The best of luck for tomorrow, Naruhodo. And give my suggestion your full consideration, won't you? Yes, I will. Going back home. You know, Kazuma-sama has always meant a great deal to my father. I'm sure he'd love the chance to meet with him and talk to him about all this. Yes, no doubt. You want a biscuit with jam and butter in it? That'd be pretty good. I am going to Smashburger tomorrow, unfortunately, so I'm not going to be eating any biscuits in the morning. I know you love to hear that because I know you don't like Smashburger. Shin. Of course, it's so obvious. Oh, how could I have neglected to consider the possibility before now? Mr. Sholmes. Hurley, where have you been? Why, I joined you all for tea, of course. With an extraordinary question. I didn't notice you at all. No matter, no matter. Anyway, to more pressing concerns. Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, yes? I must dispatch a telegram to your country at once. It is a matter of much urgency. I need some manga immediately. To Japan, you mean? Tell me, to whom can I entrust the task? Quickly now, who? Well... My father has just now left to send a telegram to the Imperial Police Bureau of Japan himself. Not really, but it was one burger. I've been having the avocado burger there. A double, usually, with fries. I see. He's the ancient Animus. Well, those didn't exist yet. Well, he looked rather reliable enough for a bearded fellow. I don't think what father sports could be considered a beard, Mr. Sholmes. There's not a moment to lose. Kindly ask your trusty, unshaven father to see this is sent. I will, but what is it? No questions at this time, if you please, Mrs. Sato. All we can do is pray that for once, my deduction is awry. Doesn't that imply your deductions are normally correct, Mr. Sholmes? Which isn't exactly... Now then! You may be surprised to learn that I am a very busy man. I certainly have no time to hide behind settees and eavesdrop on other people's conversations. So that's what joining us for tea meant. I leave the sending of this in your hands, then, my dear fellows. Wait a minute, Mr. Sholmes. He just sort of ran off, didn't he? At quite a pace. And left the unpaid bill for his tea behind, too. I must catch up with Father at the telegraph office. At once. And I'll run and call us a cab. Straight away. And there was me thinking everyone would be clamoring to pay Mr. Sholmes' bill. God damn it, Sholmes. Well, what does the telegram say? I want to know. No. Let me hold it in my hand and look at it. We haven't gone here yet. And we haven't gone here yet. It says squiggles, yeah. Room on Fresno Street. A photograph of Mrs. Vigil. Realizing the identity of this lady was a very great clue to exposing Mr. Gossip's true identity. He obviously loves his wife very dearly, which is why he felt he couldn't tell her the truth. Transformation was incredible, wasn't it? Just that big twisted lip. Yes, he went to extraordinary efforts to play the part of Hugh Boone convincingly. Although it didn't really seem like it was much of an effort to me. Now that you say it, I have to agree. It's almost as if that was Mr. Vigil's true character. People really are hard to fathom at times. Oh look, a lot of these are already, like, checked here. There are details of cases stretching back over 10 years on this notice board. Yes, a history of Lord Van Zeek's defeats in court. Yes, and it was very phallic. Like I said, those were, those weren't DSLs, those were DILs. Dick inhaling lips. I don't think that's an appropriate description. Although, when you consider everything on the board, it's certainly true that all these people had a background of dubious dealings. And in the end, of course, the board itself concealed the inspector's own death. Wow, that was really loud. Oh my, it really doesn't bear thinking about. Using a candle as a timer device. Very ingenious, I must say. Yes, the culprit arranged it so the firecracker would be set off at 5 o'clock and then left. So that a loud bang was heard precisely at the moment Lord Van Zeek's arrived, yes. If only I hadn't picked up that gun from the floor. Something you probably told yourself once upon a time, I imagine. Yes, I've learnt that lesson by bitter experience. I would have turned and run a mile for sure. Which may not have done you any favors either. I never imagined that this little figurine would turn out to be a watch-winding key. I suppose it's a policeman because the pocket watch was a gift from Scotland Yard. It seems there was much more to Inspector Gregson than we ever realized. He was clearly a brilliant man. It's the fish and chips that threw us off. I feel as though it ruined his image. I really don't think we should blame one of Britain's staple cuisines. But think about it. Imagine if it was Mr. Sholmes. How would you feel if instead of that old briar pipe and it's always in his hand, Mr. Sholmes had a bag of chips? Rather disappointed, if I'm honest. Exactly. This revolver, just who does it belong to? Well, we know it's of the type issued to members of the police force and judiciary. But Gregson's own gun was found in his person. And of course, Lord Van Zeeks is admitted to losing the firearm which he was issued. Such absent-mindedness, not dissimilar to you, Mr. Naruhodo. I'm starting to think the cold, hard prosecutor and I could become friends after all. And I wish you every success. It catches your eye as soon as you enter the room, doesn't it? It's such a bright color. It certainly makes an impression. Yes. They can't possibly commit any crimes, can they? I mean, redheads stand out like a sore thumb. When time. I'm afraid that with our jet black Japanese hair, we stand out almost as much here in London. I suppose that's true. You mustn't think of committing any crimes, Mr. Naruhodo. I wasn't. If it turns out that Gregson didn't actually die in here after all, where on earth could he have been killed? Well, one way or another, we must find out, for the inspector's sake. You know, you look awfully pale again today, Mr. Naruhodo. You had full-on straight hair. I have no hair, so there you go. My hair gets very curly when it grows long, and it's really weird because neither my mom or my dad have curly hair. But now if I let it grow long, it takes a very long time to grow in, and I have a gigantic bald spot on the top of my head, which I've had since about 10 years now. I think I've had it since I was like 24. Actually, no, I found it in like... I think I first found... Well, no, I guess I had it before then. I just didn't notice it. No, the crazy thing is I didn't notice it until I took a photo of the top of my head one day in like 2014. And then I said to people, like, I have a bald spot on my head. And people were like, yeah, we've known that for like 2 or 3 years. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? No one's told me that I've had this giant bald spot on my head this entire time, and I've had it? Ridiculous. So I went and got my head shaved before I went to PAX. Not totally, and it's kind of grown back a little bit. It's a little fuzzy, but it's very short. And I also trimmed my beard, so it's no longer messy. I don't mind being bald, honestly. Like, I don't even mind having the bald spot when the hair grows in. I know it looks weird because it makes me look a lot older than I am, but, you know, some people like that. And if I really want to, I could cosplay Dr. Wily if I let it grow out long enough and then dye it gray. I could be Dr. Wowie. And curse that Mega Man! Sorry, when I start thinking it all through, I conjure up some horrible images in my mind. Yeah, he was talking about me dressing up as Dr. Wily. Your imagination is the culprit here, then. Most certainly guilty. I guess there's nothing to see here, huh? Nothing new, at least. Alright, I guess we're done here. Mr. Vigil's hospital bed. It's a bit of a different matter for you, but you don't know how to explain it. It's too long didn't read. Well, it's a genetic thing. I mean, at the end of the day, it all comes down to genetics. And yes, there is a cultural aspect to that, too. I think that's kind of what people seem to dismiss a lot. Like if someone makes, like, a racist comment about someone based on, like, oh, well, it's just their genes. It's like, yeah, but also, that's something that's prevalent in a culture. You can't say so... It's a whole can of worms that's, like, hard to get into. St. Sinner's Hospital, Ward 3. This is the ward where Mr. Vigil was brought, apparently. To be frank, I'm a little worried about seeing him again. Also, never judge someone by their genes, obviously. That is the worst thing you could ever do. The lawyer. Hello again. Unless it's like, you know, their genes, like their blue genes. Because there's some blue genes out there that are awful looking. Then you could go ahead and say that, wow, your fashion sense sucks. Are you feeling better now, Mr. Vigil? Yes, thank you. Somewhat better. I'm so sorry to have caused you to... I mean, it was because of me. If I hadn't exposed your secret and forced you to remember things, you'd obviously try to forget. The prosecutor was here until a few moments ago, too. You just missed him. Oh, Cosmo beat us to it. He said much the same as you. He was very apologetic. But the truth is, I brought all this upon myself. Please don't think like that. Keeping it from my Evie, my wife, all these years, I've carried such a sense of guilt. Telling the alien it's much harder to take care of because one hair product can weigh hair down straight hair limits, and another can dry the fuck out of it and stuff. Yeah. You hear stories about people not being able to find product for them all the time just because it's not made for their hair types. But that's not the worst of it. Over time, I obviously came to deceive myself as well. You mean about your dismissal? Looking back now, I'm beginning to think that perhaps Inspector Gregson didn't stumble across me by accident at all. I mean, he compensated me so generously for acting as his stand-in. He was clearly concerned for my well-being and doing what he could to help. So perhaps Gregson knew exactly what had become of Mr. Vigil all along then. I'm sure this is just desserts for 10 years of lies and deception, but... And again, desserts is spelled with one S. That's desert. Why is it desert? Desert S. He's the sequel to Desert P. What is dessert? Is just desserts spelled with only one S in European English? It wasn't me that helped the professor escape 10 years ago. It wasn't. I swear it. I swear it's true. Oh, Mr. Vigil. I'm sure you'd rather not dredge up even more from your past at this time, but if possible, could you tell us exactly what really happened? If I want to, I need to get all of this off my chest. I just want someone to tell me what I should have done. Should have just told your wife, dude. Mr. Vigil, would you mind casting your eyes over this? Ugh, my head. It's throbbing. Oh no, it's too soon, Mr. Naruhodo. It's too much for him. What's he holding on to there? Look at his left hand. Or his right hand, rather. It's too much for seeing him swoon like that. Maybe I should lay off the evidence for a while. Gotta lay off the evidence, it's very fattening. This notice caught my eye before, actually. I suppose it's some sort of slogan for the ward? A cheerful welcome message, perhaps? Let's see. Pay with good cheer, leave with good cheer. Well, look at that, you were spot on, Mrs. Sato. It's full of cheer. I wonder how many discharged patients pay their medical bills with good cheer, though. Once I had to have a very painful injection when I felt ill with the cold. I felt awful already, so why did I have to suffer the sting of injection as well as the bill? I yelled at the doctor. Oh dear, what terrible treatment. These must be the patient's treatment notes. Let's see. Tendency to jump from windows. Remember to place cushion at base of wall outside. Aren't we a story up from the ground here? Oh dear, poor Mr. Vigil. I can't help but feeling there's a better solution to the problem than a cushion, though. Finding something you lost isn't always a happy experience, it turns out. Pursuing the truth can be a very dark business sometimes, can it? Yes, I'm afraid it can. The spelling is correct? Just desserts. 2 S's. Desert spelled with 1 S refers to a dry region. Desert spelled with 2 S's refers to a sweet dish after a meal, though. Oh. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a fucking minute. Oh no. Okay, what... Desert... Okay. Is it just desserts or just deserts? Things get a bit more complicated with the phrase just desserts, which means what's rightfully deserved, especially as a consequence for having done something wrong. For example, you might say, he won't get away with this forever, he'll get his just desserts. In just desserts, deserts is pronounced the same as desserts, but is spelled with only 1 S in the middle. That's because it's related to the word deserve. Both it and deserve come from the old French word deservir, meaning to deserve. Ah, okay. So, it's a completely different word. It's not actually an analogy. It's not actually an analogy. It's not saying that you're getting some sort of dessert or going to some desert. It's saying you're getting your what you deserve. And that's why it's spelled with an S, because it's a I didn't know that. I'm dumb. Why would I know that? If I had a Steam Deck right now, or if I had the voice clip, I'd play the "And Here We Are" clip from Kirby. I want that. I need a voice clip. I need like a clip of the "And Here We Are" voice, just isolated, so I could pull that up when I need to. I'm not saying that. Look. I think something a lot of people don't understand is when I say that like that in this case, I'm not saying that to be self-deprecating. Well, I guess I kind of am. I'm not saying that to be like negative. I'm saying that to be like jokey about it. I think a lot of people that watch my streams don't realize that, and they think I'm being hard on myself. And it's like, no, I'm just doing what other streamers do. Yeah, I learned a thing, and that's good. There are all sorts of medicines in this cabinet. Look. I'm not sure if it's safe leaving them in reach of everyone like this. It's just... Okay, it's just weird that, like, I wouldn't know that phrase, but I know so much other random weird shit. Like, my scope of knowledge seems to be very large, but at the same time, extremely small. Yes, you're right. I can imagine if you were peckish, you might try some of the pills. Well, at least seem to be a little lock to secure the cabinet doors. I don't imagine that would stop you if you were hungry. I worried you'd break the lock. Hunger doesn't turn me into a criminal, you know, Mrs. Sato. Ah, look, a pair of crutches. Before we came to Britain, I hadn't realized they were used here as well. One of the medicines is cocaine? Probably. I imagine they were imported into Japan from Great Britain in the first place. Oh, so no one in all of Japan broke a leg before their arrival? Anyway, the sight of these things doesn't bring back good memories for me. Oh dear, did you injure yourself once? And need to use some? When I was little, I thought they looked fun, so I borrowed a pair to play with. But then I slipped and sprained my ankle. I see. They contain powerful magic, those wooden staffs. The power to heal and the power to harm. I think a certain cheeky little boy managed to cause the harm all by himself. Cheeky. He's a cheeky little boy. Okay. I miss Metalocalypse. It's getting a movie. They're making a Metalocalypse movie to finish the series. After airing Doomstar Requiem like all of once, which was a great special, by the way. Doomstar Requiem was amazing. Yes, they are. They're finishing it. They're finishing the story of Metalocalypse. And Venture Brothers is getting a movie, too. I am excited for both of those. There are lots of bottles in that cabinet there, aren't there? Do you think it's safe to keep them there? If you were a patient here, I feel sure you'd take some of the medicine by mistake when you were half asleep. That is a worry, but at least the cabinet has a lock, even if it's only a flimsy-looking one. Oh, I've no doubt you managed to unlock that somehow while you were half asleep as well. There are limits to what even I can do when I'm half asleep, you know, Mrs. Sato. Ah, patient treatment notes. What do these say, I wonder? Endlessly obliging. I suppose it's referring to the patient in this bed. I would think so, and until Mr. Vigil is a little more stable, it's probably just as well that he has a kindly person in the neighboring bed. The endlessly part is just a little worrying, though, isn't it? I mean, what if Mr. Vigil suddenly declared that he'd like to take a trip out the window? Would this endlessly obliging patient simply open it for him and say, "Be my guest"? Let's check with the doctor later. Inspector Gregson was obviously engaged in a special operation of some sort. He was investigating something that even Scotland Yard couldn't know about. Details of the Reaper's marks, yes. It was when he had to carry out those investigations that I would take his identification and impersonate him. He'd pretend to be an inspector and carry out the investigations on his behalf? Oh no, never. A common street peddler couldn't possibly carry out a proper police investigation. All I would do is go to the specified location and make a little hoo-ha. Little whoopee? Just something to leave an impression, so everyone there would think a detective called Gregson was here. So that's what you were doing on that day prior to the incident? Yes, he asked me to make an appearance at the park on Lime Street for the Red-Headed League event. So as usual, I flashed the inspector's identification around, and was very vocal about my presence. But you were then taken prisoner by those red-headed fraudsters. I almost... When that word was showing up, I thought she was going to say by those red-headed fuckers. Yes. So you would always make a point of showing Gregson's identification, and generally being loud? That's what the inspector asked me to do, yes. Well, that's one way of becoming a legendary detective, I suppose. Not a good one, though. And as you know, I suffered the bruising around my neck at their hands. But the following day, they kept their word and released me. Without returning the inspector's identification to you, however. We had managed to meet in the Fresno Street room at 5 that day so I could report back to the inspector. But at the agreed time, that's when I heard the gunshot. It was at midnight on the 17th June 10 years ago. That was the time scheduled for the execution. But the professor's execution never actually took place, did it? Or rather, the execution itself must have been used to affect the plan of escape. I hardly dare to imagine what a chilling plan it was. Barclay was renowned for being the highest security prison in the country. Everything that went in or out of our place was searched multiple times. But there was one notable exception. Or rather, one notable loophole. Something that was never questioned. I have a feeling I know what it is. The coffins in which the bodies of the executed convicts were placed, correct? Yes. Once the coroner had confirmed the death of a condemned convict, the body was taken in its coffin for immediate burial in Lowgate Cemetery, just behind the prison. The chief warder first had to sign the necessary papers. And after that, no member of the staff was permitted to touch the coffin containing the body again. When executions took place, only the executioner and the coroner were permitted inside the chamber. I would wait in the adjacent room for word that the condemned convict was dead. On that occasion, once I had confirmation, I went into the mortuary to find a lone coffin as usual. The procedure was that I would sign the paperwork, having checked the coffin, then nail it shut. But for some reason that day, the coffin was already nailed shut. No. I didn't think anything of it at the time. I assumed that my deputy must have checked the coffin and nailed it shut before I arrived. So, you mean, the coffin contained... Yes, I can only imagine that Asogi, having escaped his execution somehow, was alive inside the coffin. The coffin was then taken out of the main gates and deposited in Lowgate Cemetery. Presumably there wouldn't have been enough air inside to breathe for long. So in the early hours following the burial, somebody dug up the coffin again to get Genshin free. But in the end, he was fatally shot in the graveyard anyway. What on earth really happened in Lowgate Cemetery that night, I wonder? I'm afraid I don't really know. All I could say with certainty are two things. Asogi couldn't possibly have escaped that way without help from somebody working in the prison. And that somebody was not me. Obviously you knew the man then? The professor, I mean, Genshin Asogi? Yes, I remember him well, in fact. Would you mind telling us what you know? Well, having been condemned to death as he was, any contact I had with the man was short, obviously. After that trial, which was carried out behind closed doors, attended only by elite members of the judiciary, they called for his execution to be carried out at the earliest possible opportunity. The outcome of that trial was set from the beginning, wasn't it? It was a time of delicate diplomacy when Britain and Japan were in the process of signing an important treaty. That meant this potentially destabilizing case had to be dealt with swiftly and discreetly. The man had less than a week in total. As I was the chief warder, I oversaw his short stay in the cells until his final hour. I remember being struck deeply by his noble character and incredible resilience. What do you mean exactly? He was a killer of many men, but he was always quiet and polite. He was a gentleman and a man of intellect. In fact, I couldn't bring myself to believe what he'd done, so I asked him one day, "To those 5 members of the aristocracy whose lives were taken, were you really responsible?" "I'm guilty of the unforgivable crime of ending another human's life, yes." The following day, the closed trial took place, and the verdict was no surprise. Guilty. That night, when he was brought back to his cell, I saw something. Something unusual. Something unusual? What? The last will and testament of Genshin Asogi. As I said, it was on the night following his trial after he'd been found guilty. I was doing the rounds of the cells, and when I looked into Asogi's, I noticed that he seemed to have a sheet of paper in his hand. His last will and testament then, probably. As soon as he noticed me, he hurriedly shoveled it behind his back. "But why did you find that so unusual?" Isn't it normal for a man to prepare to pen a will when he knows his death is nigh? Yes, that's true. But there were special conditions to Asogi's incarceration, you see. What sort of conditions? Well, even though he was held in a cell designed for the condemned inmates, he was allowed to keep his personal effects with him, with one exception. Really? He was allowed his things? It is unusual, certainly. Of course, he'd been convicted of killing 5 members of the aristocracy. But at the same time, he was a guest in our country from the Empire of Japan. The powers that be were determined that his final days shouldn't be needlessly uncomfortable. And what was the exception you mentioned to the personal effects that he was allowed? That's the point. He wasn't permitted to have writing materials. Specifically, no pens or paper. So, he was prevented from leaving any written record of what had happened to him? Yes, that was long and short of it. I have no idea where he obtained that paper. Any writing materials would have been confiscated from him upon his incarceration. As I said, he hid the paper behind his back, and then he pleaded with me. Or did you just hide behind your back? Please, please turn a blind eye. This is my lifeline. But you know it's against the rules. You're the only person who's seen. If you just agree to keep it quiet. Alright then, but what's on that paper? A last will and testament. This will is the only weapon I have left now. How can a will be a weapon? So I decided to pretend I'd see nothing, and I let him keep his will. But then later, it just seemed to vanish without a trace. What? What do you mean it vanished? It would seem that this isn't the end of the story of this mysterious will. I was the only person who saw Asogi's will, but somehow it disappeared. It was after Asogi's execution, which was actually an elaborate jailbreak. The warders gathered up Asogi's possessions that were in his cell. They were all to be sent back to his family home in Japan, you see. To poor Kazuma-sama. And you're saying that it wasn't anywhere to be found among his personal effects? The will, I mean? That's right. Though I didn't search thoroughly myself. But Governor Caden was livid. He was screaming, "It can they have disappeared completely?" That doesn't quite make sense, though, does it? In what way? Well, we'd understood that only Mr. Vigil was aware of the will's existence. In which case, how did the prison governor know how to look for it? Oh yes, you're right. I really don't know how he knew, but it certainly seemed as though he knew of the will's existence from the outset. Only he didn't refer to it as a will. What he said was... the Asogi Papers. The Asogi Papers? It's the Da Vinci Code. I really can't tell you anything of the subsequent events. Because, well, of what happened. Your dismissal, and the way you blocked it all from your memory. I'd forgotten all this until today. I don't suppose it's relevant to the case, though. Well, anyway, thank you very much for sharing it with us, Mr. Vigil. We're very grateful. Now go home and be a family man, damn it. I'm afraid there's really little more I can tell you. My wife Eva will be here shortly, so I do hope I don't appear rude, but... No, not at all. Thank you again. What will become of you now? Well, impersonating a police officer is a criminal offense, of course. I imagine that once I'm fully recovered, I shall be arrested. I'm so sorry. Don't be. Please. This was all my own doing. I always knew that this day would come. Well, I wish you well. Goodbye, Mr. Vigil. And then he jumps out the window again. Ah! Wait, what? Before you go, there's just one thing. Oh, yes? What is it? The Asogi papers. I'd be very grateful if you'd make no mention of the things I told you about them. Presumably for some good reason? It's my understanding that their very existence is a closely guarded secret. If it became known that I remembered, well, it could be rather troublesome, I think. I understand. Some sort of will that Genshin Asogi penned just before his death, which the man himself claimed was his last weapon. I wonder, perhaps it had something to do with his plan to escape. If there's anyone who might know more about a document that Cosmo's father left behind, it would be Mr. Vigil's governor. Then we know precisely where we must go. Back to Barclay Prison. Oh my god, this is taking forever. Well, at least he seems to be on the mend. You know, his disguise as Mr. Gossip was really quite masterful, wasn't it? Can't remember anything about it except for the floppy lip. I imagine not even his wife would have recognized him. Perhaps, but he did really have to take it quite so far. Do I want to go here or do I want to go here? Dr. Gory has taken Dr. Sight's place as chief scalpel wielder. Oh god, look. It's all gothic Lolita now. Skeleton. Oh, look at the Plague Doctor! I love it. The clown's cute too, I guess. Cat. This place really is creepy, isn't it? Well, being a dead room, it's probably full of the spirits of the dissected. But actually, there's a rather pleasing scent of roses in the air. Well, being a dead room, the coroner probably needs a bold scent like that to mask the odor of death. Iris, do you think we could change the subject? What was that? Dr. Gory? Oh, yes, it's her. What? That noise before. I was sharpening my tools. I'd be dead meat if I didn't keep a perfectly keen edge on them. Right. When following the collagen fibers in the dermis, an expertly sharpened scalpel cuts like cheese. Would you like a demonstration? Oh, yes, please. I'd love to see. Then, I think you'll do nicely. Huh? No, I wouldn't do nicely at all. I mean, maybe some other time. Was that a tut? Well, we came here to ask questions, so... This looks different to before. Of course, Mr. Naruhodo, Miss Gory is a young maiden. She has all sorts of charming little dolls and the like around her place of work. Look. Oh yes, you're right. Perhaps she's not so strange after all. They're how I practice. Sorry? Mama always says that operations and dissections require speed and accuracy. So I take out my needle and thread and stitch 3 new dolls every day. Ah, right. I used to make livers or kidneys or intestines, but Mama told me to make something more friendly instead. That's quite different to what I'd imagined. Look at all the bottles on the shelves in these cabinets. What an assortment of chemicals. These ones here are labeled highly toxic. Oh, that's worrying, because there are also things that look like salt and pepper shakers in there. Oh, this is the same conversation from last time. See, hearing salt and pepper makes me think of Chrono Cross with salt and pepper. This is all the same stuff we do. Can I ask your opinion about this?
Don't forget, you're responsible for putting my mama in jail. Why should I help you?
Oh look, you can see her face here. Maria Gori, 19, the daughter of Dr. Scythe, who's also a coroner like her mother. She carries out all the autopsy work on corpses. We have actually met before. I'm a lawyer, if you remember.
You're not dead yet.
What? What?
So Mama said I wasn't to cut you open. She's so strict about things like that.
Well, good. Dr. Scythe has some scruples, at least. Oh dear. It looks like she's not interested in talking to us. For the time being, anyway. For the time being? You mean until we die? I hope that's a way off. Sorry, but I wasn't planning on dying anytime soon. Surely there's some less drastic way of making her listen. Dr. Gori, we actually came here to ask you about this.
He was very good.
Good? Sorry?
His skin didn't snag my blade once, and very little mess. His joints dislocated easily, and his muscle tissue was a pleasure to work with.
We could skip those details. But there is one thing about the report that's caught my attention. You don't seem to have recorded a time of death. That's not my fault. Oh, that made me jump. Then please, tell us what happened. Time of death. Time of death! So, why doesn't this autopsy report include the victim's time of death then? It's really the most crucial detail.
I was told not to write it.
What? By whom?
Mel Strongheart, the Lord Chief Justice. He came here.
Well, that facade really got blown off quickly. Why would he tell her not to write it? Lord Strongheart came?
He said that from a witness's statement about the gunshot and the other evidence, it was obvious. The man clearly died at 5 p.m. on 1st November when the gunshot was heard.
That's not the time of death you wrote on the report. You didn't write anything. Was there some reason you didn't include it? Dr. Gori, if you're hiding something under Lord Strongheart's instructions, then sooner or later, you're going to go the same way as your mother. Give it here, then. What's she scribbling so furiously? There. You've written... What? What's she written? Tell us! Indeterminate. But... according to the coroner, Dr. Gori, an accurate estimation of the time of death is not possible. What do you mean by that? Why was the time of death indeterminate? When the specimen was brought in, it was still fresh, so the time of death could easily have coincided with the gunshot that was heard.
But there was one small discrepancy.
What discrepancy?
There was some fried fish in the pocket of the specimen's overcoat. And that fish had started to rot.
What?
If the victim liked fried fish, he presumably liked to eat it before it went off.
Well, yes. What are you trying to say, though?
It's possible that someone tried to manipulate the apparent time of death.
Manipulate the... Is that even possible to do?
Theoretically, if you were to chill a body in ice, you could delay the onset of putrefaction. And if the overcoat wasn't on the body at the time,
then only the fish would have started to rot.
with today's science, it's not possible to determine if the body was chilled or not.
But today's science is advanced enough to let you freeze a corpse, it seems. But surely, to chill a corpse like that would require an enormous electrical refrigerator. And I don't imagine many households in London were equipped with such a device. No, definitely not, but maybe in a factory? Or some other special places? I don't recall seeing any factories or such like on Fresno Street, though. I wonder if the inspector's body had been chilled somehow. What might the actual time of death have been?
I couldn't say for sure.
But at the most, it might have been a day earlier. No! In other words, it would corroborate with your previous deduction, Mr. Naruhodo. That Inspector Gregson was killed a day before his body was discovered, at a different location. Did you inform Lord Strongheart of this possibility? He simply said that there were no electrical refrigerators of that size in the vicinity.
If you don't mind, then.
Sorry? She's gone back to sharpening her blades.
Not now. My baby here might start to rust.
I think perhaps we'd better leave Dr. Gory alone. Maybe we could try again later if we manage to find some more clues. Let's have a closer look at this. Then again, let's not. At least not while she's still armed. November, Barclay Prison, Governor's Office. There he is. There's the big guy. Oh, back again, are you? Yes, hello. For all about your investigations, I read the report just now. You found them, eh? Vigil? That's not the right accent. Oh, yes, luckily. Well, anywho, the laddie doesn't work here no more. So your case is not to do with Barclay. I wouldn't like you to get the wrong idea about that. Of course, yes, Mr. Vigil stopped working here 10 years ago now, so... Yes, we've seen his dismissal notice, haven't we? He was given the chop. Aye, Kimmer, you can very well. So how about a wee handcuff biscuit? Well, they really are like little handcuffs, and as hard as irons, too. So what's brought you down here for the day? Well, there's something else we'd like to ask you about, actually. Is that so? I believe there might have been a document that disappeared from Genshin Asogi's cell. I think it's been called the Asogi Papers or something. There no say, Gregson's death is not to do with things that might have happened at Barclay. Leave the past in the past, laddie. Let's not foot him about with your relevant details. Details. This message changed completely. We're clearly onto something here. Never examined this. This grandfather clock is fitted with a terrifying blade that keeps dropping down. It's modeled on the guillotine, a French execution device. You might have heard of it. And yes, before you ask, it can chop. Heads off, you mean? Havers no, carrots and parsnips and so forth. Oh. You place a large carrot in the bottom there in the morn. By evening, it'll have been cut clean in two. Well, the blade must have an almost indescribable edge on it then. That murderer's botched execution. and the whole miserable escape. They were Barclay's darkest hour, aye, a shocking embarrassment. Because the convict had a collaborator in the prison staff, you mean? Aye, for shame. The coroner who confirmed the death of the man after his execution, Courtney Scythe, and my chief warder at the time, Vigil, who was in the charge of the whole affair. But Mr. Vigil says he doesn't know anything about it. Rascal, wouldn't they say otherwise, eh? More handcuffs? Oh, how can I say no? You can never have too much iron in your diet. When Mr. Vigil was handed his dismissal notice as a result of what happened, he was so despairing he jumped out of your office window, didn't he? I didn't like to say, but that's just Vigil trying to get out of it. Do you not think he wouldn't have jumped from the shock of his crimes being exposed, eh? I do. You wouldn't say otherwise, though, would you? Of course, I can have shown all the responsibility myself. I shouldn't have let him deceive me. Actually, there's barely anybody that kens what went on with that time now. With Gregson having been murdered and Dr. Scythe being forbidden from having any visitors. No visitors? Someone obviously doesn't want her giving anything away. Well, we're not going home empty-handed. And I wouldn't have dreamed of sending you packing with now, Kimmer. Here, take a handcuff or two. Well, it would be rude to say no. Wouldn't want to become anemic. I suppose if there's anybody who might still ken about what happened back then, it'd be that last from the forensic division, Maria Gorey. Maria Gorey? Oh, we just saw her. Aye, Scythe's daughter. She didn't have no more, just the one. But the wee bairns followed in her mem's footsteps. You didn't ever see her without a scalpel in her hand. Ah. Ah. Dr. Scythe's daughter, Maria Gorey. We literally just saw her. We could do with talking to her again. So, she's Dr. Scythe's daughter, but her surname is Gorey? Aye, there's some family history, I'm sure, but I didn't ken the ins and outs of it. She grew up watching her man working with the bodies of the folk who died in strange circumstances, and decided to do the same with her own life. I cannot understand it myself. Perhaps she was driven by a deep respect for her mother. I should show this character to Nessie. She would have a field day reading his dialogue. Perhaps. Anywho, she was in charge of Gregson's autopsy, I believe. Right, and the coroner responsible for this incomplete report. Someone told me once the wee lassie always loved her mam's stories about cutting up bodies. There's even the rumor she used to listen to the funeral march as a lullaby. Well then, perhaps her mother might have told her about the autopsy from the case 10 years ago. Aye, I'd say there's a fighting chance at least. After all, that was a life-changing case for all of us. I really need to speak to Miss Gorey herself about this, I think. Well, thank you very much. I'm no happy about any part of this. Took years for Londoners to finally forget the whole professor business. Can you no give up on this, laddie? Stop asking pointless questions. I'm sorry, I don't like dredging up these painful memories for everyone. Can you just stay away, now? Leave me alone and dinna come back here, eh? One more. How'd you come to ken about that, laddie? There's no many folk even in here in this prison who've heard of those papers. Ah, well, I can't tell him. I can't tell him Mr. Vigil told me. I'm afraid our sources must remain confidential, sir. We've been led to believe the papers are actually a last will and testament. Is that right? The professors, or rather, Genshin Asogi's. Aye, that's right. You're well informed, Jimmy. Bond with me, Jimmy. Bond with me, Jimmy. The pizza's aggressive. Oh, is that the end of the silent treatment? Then after the convict's execution, it mysteriously vanished from his cell, didn't it? Havers no, you're off at half-cocked there. I know a thing about being half-cocked. I think you didn't quite get your facts straight. It was there in the cell, exactly where it should have been. Oh, not what we heard elsewhere. Let me just have a wee look around here. I'm sure I can find it. That's some axe he's got at his sign there. Ah, here you are. See? The last one, Testament of Genshin Asogi, written with a calligraphy brush. Of course, I cannot read the word of those Japanese squiggles, but I mind it says he leaves all his worldly possessions to his son back in his homeland. Yes, that is correct. That's the gist of it. So these are the Asogi papers? Aye, of course they are. Papers written by Asogi, and they do about it. There's no mystery here, laddie. That's your lot. After the Stromash of that slave staff in execution, we sent the man's possessions back to his clan in Japan, and that was the end of it. I think we ought to make a record of this, Mr. Naruhodo, just in case. The last one, Testament of Genshin Asogi, that Mr. Vigil claims disappeared after the convict's execution. Apparently Mr. Asogi described it as the only weapon I have left. One thing before you go on your way, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, yes? Those papers are naught to do with Gregson's death. I'd prefer if you didn't make no mention of them outside this office. Or rather, I wouldn't just prefer it. Consider it an order from the highest levels of our government. I understand. But why? I, Genshin Asogi, hereby request that upon my death, any and all material possessions and wealth belonging to me in London be delivered to my son Cosmo Asogi in the Empire of Japan. It is with deep sadness that I accept my fate in this foreign land, in the knowledge that I will never see my homeland or family again, but I regret nothing about my chosen path. I wonder what's so important about that. Governor Caden, would you ever look at this? Oh, wouldn't you rather have a wee handcuff biscuit? Oh, no thanks. I'd rather you just cast your eyes over this. Or maybe you'd prefer real handcuffs, eh? No, neither for me, please. Lovely offers, though. I don't think I believe we've visited this place in some time. We just were here 10 minutes ago. Someone's sharpening again.
You're still not dead? Anyway, I don't have anything more to tell you about that specimen.
Actually, we're not here to ask you about Inspector Gregson. We were hoping to talk to your mother. Talk about your mother, Dr. Scythe. It's something the governor of Barclay Prison mentioned. He said that she was responsible for confirming the death of the professor after his execution. That's not all Mama did. Sorry? My Mama carried out the autopsy of Clint Van Zeeks as well. What? Really? The brother of Lord Van Zeeks, the professor's final victim. The idea of carrying out an autopsy on a member of the aristocracy was completely unthinkable back then. But the detective in charge of the investigation insisted, and it was miraculously authorized. That detective being Inspector Gregson, of course. Quite an accomplishment for one man. That autopsy provided the vital clue needed to arrest the killer. And Mama was there for that historic event. Oh, I just realized! Her symbol is like the symbol that Emma has later. Hold on. It's not the same symbol, but it's absolutely meant to be like similar to it. Or maybe not. Maybe I'm just seeing things. No, it's not the same symbol. I think it's supposed to be reminiscent of the, of Emma's stuff, though, just because forensic science. And that's what Emma is. She's a forensic scientist. What does all this mean? You know, that amazing autopsy happened right here in this very room. The Professor and Clint Van Zeeks. They both spent their final moments before their burial on that dissection table over there. So this lab, Mama's lab, was instrumental in some of the country's most important events. She really is proud of her mother. What if you tell us more about exactly what happened back then, Dr. Gory? The Professor's execution was Mama's first big case. She had to be in attendance at Barclay Prison's execution chamber and sign the certificate to confirm the convict's death. Mama is the best coroner in the world, you know. I was so proud of her. But the execution didn't actually take place. No, and worse still, Mama actually helped with the jailbreak.
I didn't want to know.
Oh dear, you found out recently, you mean?
I believed in her and Mama, but now I wonder if I'm starting down the same path as her.
You mean because you omitted the time of death on this autopsy report? But that's because Lord Strongheart forbade you from including it.
Just like Mama, I'm sure she was coerced by someone too.
Yes, that's my feeling as well. There's no doubt that there were powerful forces at play 10 years ago. The execution couldn't have been staged without a lot of people at the prison knowing about it. Obviously, the prison governor must have been on it as well. The big man with the little handcuffs? According to what he told us, he was tricked by the chief warder. He says he knew nothing about it. Of course he said that. I'd say the same thing. Just who was behind that jailbreak all those years ago? It's gonna be a clue. They all did it. You're wondering who killed Mr. Body? It was me. In the hallway with the revolver. That's not what Mr. Green sounded like. Also, sorry, spoilers for a 40-year-old movie. You mentioned the autopsy of Clint Van Zeeks. I was at a time when carrying out autopsies of murder victims was very unusual. It's still not a practice that's observed in our country, even now. It turned out that he was the Professor's final victim, and when the autopsy was performed, Mama was present, although only as the secondary assistant. The person leading the procedure was called Dr. John H. Wilson. Oh no! That's right, my daddy! And there was one other person present, the primary assistant. He was a visiting student from the Far East. Wait, a visiting student? It must have been my father, Eugen Mikotoba. I had no idea Professor Mikotoba had been involved in something so important. But the outcome of that historic autopsy was the discovery of a vital piece of evidence that led to the capture of the professor. So that's how they came to identify Genshin Asogi as the infamous mass murderer. Do you happen to know anything about that piece of evidence? Can you tell us any more?
Would you like to see the records for yourself?
Would that be alright?
What's the point of keeping records if people can't look at them?
They're filed under V at the back of those cupboards, with the other records from the last decade. Why did my voice stop being muffled? Thank you. Let's see. Van Zeeks. That's strange. What, Mr. Naruhodo? They aren't here. There's nothing under Van Zeeks.
There must be!
Perhaps somebody took them away? No. No one's allowed to take those documents related to the Professor case out of this room. But you're right. They're gone. Well, when was the last time somebody looked at them? Do you remember? It was... Oh yes, I remember now. It was 2 years ago. A A consulting detective came one day saying that he'd like to see the records. No, you don't mean... Herlock Sholmes was his name. Deep down, I knew that it was coming. Do you think he stole the records? Oh no, surely not. Iris, that can't be right. Can it? Iris? Runo. I hope you don't mind, but... What is it, Iris? I just remembered something very important I have to do. I'm going to have to leave you now. Oh, this is very sudden, Iris. Well, we'll come with you then. Oh, no, there's no need. You and Runo can take your time here. Bye for now, then. Good luck. Wait a minute, little girl. Me? I remember now. You've been here before, haven't you? Have you, Iris? Yes, 2 years ago, when that detective came. You were with him, weren't you? You were a living specimen then, too. That's the way it usually works, yes. Was I? I really don't remember. Anyway, sorry, but I must dash. Wait, Iris. I'll brew up a pot for you when you get home. What's the matter with her? She's behaving really strangely all of a sudden. Well, in that case, we won't keep you any longer either. It's been quite a while since I had any visitors. This was really fun. But next time you come, I'd prefer it if you were ready for dissection. Can't make any promises, sorry. It's a bit strange that the records of Clint Van Zeek's autopsy have disappeared. But I think we asked all we came to ask now. Gotta go back to the room. Police are still busily investigating the scene in here, then. It is a case there now. But Gina's nowhere to be seen. Where is she? Yes, it has been blissfully quiet, hasn't it? Perhaps she's out investigating on her own, practicing what her boss taught her. Well, I suspect she'll be back before too long. Shall we wait? Actually... there's something different about this room since the last time we were here, isn't there? We could always use the time to investigate a little more thoroughly. We could, but I'm gonna stop here. I don't think there's that much... Actually, let me see. I could just check the video I had open before. History. Greatest Attorney Chronicles, Chapter 4. This is like a story mode playthrough, so I could just kind of speed through it until I find the place that I'm currently at. Scrub through it. Wow, there's still like an hour of this case left. We're in terms of progression, this is 6 hours and 10 minutes. We're at 5 hours and 20. Wow. So there's still a decent chunk of this left. So here's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna stop here for now. And I think you could kind of piece this together. There's no second court period in this. I think the next court period's in the next chapter. But so we'll next time I stream, I'll pick this up. I'll finish up this case, and then I'll move on to something else because I don't want to start case 5 before I leave. Because there's no way I'm gonna finish it before I go on vacation. Because as the handy chart will say here, it is currently the 30th. I'm not gonna be streaming today. I probably won't be streaming the 1st either. I might be watching the charity stream. Unless the charity stream ends early, I might come back that night. and then I'll probably stream 2 and 3 on May 2nd and 3rd. 4th, I'm definitely not streaming, and then I won't be back until the following Wednesday, so I'm not going to try to brute force Chapter 5 at all. We're going to finish Chapter 4, and then I'll start something else in the meantime. But yeah, this was fun. We're making good headway here. And again, appreciate everyone that comes by. Appreciate you for chatting and following and all that fun stuff. If you want to watch more streams, check out twitch.tv/team/wildabandon. Plenty of people streaming there right now. Or you can stick around and my auto host will eventually go to someone. I don't know who. You all have a great evening. And I will see you either Sunday or Monday with the rest of this chapter and something else. Good night.